Britannico 1986. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51 Shooting. Fine. I was careless. A mature actress is well informed and knows everything. She is indeed an Oscar-level Best Actress. In addition, you need to add some hand movements to show your nervousness from the side. Director Jen, don't worry, I understand. Meryl narrowed her eyes slightly and glanced at Alan slightly, like a flirtatious look. Okay, let's get ready. Alan didn't pay attention to Meryl's eyes. The old woman was wearing makeup and had wrinkles on her face, and he didn't bother to look at her face at all. Point when two photographers were called, some precautions had to be explained. You have to pay attention to the details of her facial expressions and capture her tangled feeling. Do you understand? Understood, Your Excellency. What about you? In this medium shot, you have to pay attention to her gestures. When you see her hands moving, take a close-up of her hand movements for me. Do you understand? Understand. The two photographers responsible for close-up and mid-range shots were even more nervous when facing Alan. The nobleman said whatever he wanted and did not dare to raise any opinions. Okay, get ready. Alan took out the exclusive gold pattern trumpet and continued with the next shot. In just 5 days, the filming of the scene in the hotel went smoothly, but the overall pace was not too fast. Point when shooting during the day, since Alan couldn't see the playback, everything had to be shot based on feeling. He could only take the film back to the manor when work was done in the afternoon, and in his newly built editing room, let the photographer make a rough cut and take the film. Show him again. Point this time, it's time to look at the details. If a problem is found, the lens will need to be replenished the next day. Point this is already an extremely efficient shooting method. Why can Hollywood gather so many crews in such a small place? Because their place has all the facilities. After the director finished shooting the film that day, he could see the rough cut of the film in the nearby editing room at night. Point. If you move to a poorer place and don't have all the equipment, then you can truly shoot blindly. Point. Those directors can only shoot a lot more scenes, and there is no lower limit, and they always need to guarantee one thing. Whenever a problem is discovered, the backup screen can be enabled, and the consequences of this are: point first, a lot of time is wasted, and the entire film production cycle is lengthened, ranging from 1 or 2 years to 3 or 4 years. Second, a lot of film is wasted. The cost of these films used for shooting is not cheap. If too much is wasted, the cost of the film will naturally increase as time goes by. Point now, since Alan is shooting nearby, he is not willing to make these upfront investments, so the shooting is much more convenient. Point. Although it is not as professional as Hollywood, but compared with the crews in other places, his behavior is already very heroic. Point. As the filming progressed, the mutual familiarity between the actors and crew members increased, and the cooperation of the entire crew gradually became more and more tacit. Point. Inside the hotel room. Point. Alan was holding an instrument like a long SLR lens and sitting next to the camera. Point. This is an optical viewfinder. It's functional. Point. It simulates the footage captured by the camera, making it easier for the director to control the footage. Point. It's better than nothing. Point. At the end of the double bed, Meryl changed into a slightly sexier pajamas and sat next to the little black duck. Point. Alan looked at the footage of the two of them and frowned slightly. Today's shooting gave him a very bad feeling, but he couldn't tell what was wrong specifically. Click. Alan stopped filming, stood up and glanced around, finally discovering where this bad feeling came from. Point. Light. To be precise, it's the brightness of the light. Point. Today's scene is a bit larger in scale and is considered foreplay. At this time, the light in the room is dark. Point. In this way, the overall feeling is very fragmented. Point. Not that ambiguous. It's hard to describe this thing in words. If I have to describe it, why are the lights in many leisure houses and beauty salons small pink lamps? An experienced driver will know clearly as soon as he sees this kind of light, and his emotions will be mobilized in a timely manner. It is time to go in and rescue the woman who has lost her footing. Point. But if this kind of place were replaced with green and darker lighting. Point. No matter how good looking the young lady standing at the door soliciting customers is, will customers still feel that way when they see this kind of lighting? The difference here is just the lighting. Who arranged the lighting today? Didn't you read the shooting plan? What effect do I want? What kind of shit is this arrangement? When he remembered that the shot he had taken for a long time was useless, Alan glanced around angrily and finally landed on Syphis in the corner, who was trying his best to hide himself in the dark. Seeing Alan's gaze, Syphis swallowed. "Master, please wait a moment. I will let them change it right now." After speaking, Syphis waved his hand fiercely and asked the lighting engineer to quickly change the lighting. These lighting engineers poached from the BBC were a fucking embarrassment to him. While the lighting engineer went to rearrange the lights, Alan waved to Meryl, then called the two photographers to his side and began to explain his ideas again. During the filming, "Meryl, I need you to wear your pajamas as tight as possible. For example, when you sit down, you can put your hands behind your back and straighten the hem of your pajamas before sitting down. Bring out your curves and your breasts need to be firmer." In this film, Alan planned to shoot on the sidelines, but absolutely not to reveal it. This is the bottom line point. Although in terms of the general environment, there are also exposed scenes on the Titanic. They are doing it in the name of art, but they are who they are, and Alan is not going to be so straightforward in this film. What he wants to play is stream of consciousness, taking the emotional route. That is teasing. It's normal, but it's not ordinary, as long as he raises his mood high enough in version A. Gambia's passenger flow will be huge. For pure yellow, aren't there professionals from version B responsible for it? Who says that if you don't reveal anything, the audience won't feel anything after watching it? So what are they doing with so many censored films? What you want is emotion. What you want is artistic conception. Alan is very knowledgeable about photographing women. When photographing young women, to capture their youthfulness and vitality. They need to capture their long legs and feet. It should be shot from bottom to top, slowly and carefully along the feet, giving the audience a sense of hiding behind the screen and unscrupulously looking at every inch of a beautiful woman's skin from bottom to top. Feel point. But when it comes to photographing middle-aged women, this is no longer the case. They are no longer young, and their appearance is no longer their advantage. This requires changing the angle to capture the key points. What's the point? It's the kind of slight sagging after going through a lot, the kind of slightly bulging lower abdomen, the kind of stretch marks on the lower abdomen, the kind that, even if you wear heavy makeup, you don't have that much aura of worldliness, but you have seen all the world. The sense of vicissitudes of life and the future is something that young women don't have. And now that he is abroad, Alan has to go one step further. Not only does he want to take pictures of everything on it, but he also wants to take pictures more directly. He wants to take pictures of some of Meryl's curves. He wants to hide them a little bit. A feeling of Chapter 52. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. The optical viewfinder adjusted slightly to follow the angle of view of the camera. Alan lay beside him and struggled to look at the picture in the optical viewfinder. This thing seemed too eye-catching. After watching it for a long time, Alan finally gave up on looking for the feeling of sitting in front of the monitor. Instead, he chose to trust the photographer. At best, he could go back and watch it slowly at night. At the end of the day's shooting, I went home and had a meal first. After the meal, I had the therapist massage me for a while, and then I walked to the screening room. The editor has already made a rough cut version of today's shooting, and only then can Alan see all the shots he shot today. In the screening room, looking at Meryl's figure being displayed on the screen, there was no doubt that the photographer had taken the photo according to his own requirements. Watch from beginning to end. Alan was embarrassed to find that he seemed to have encountered a problem. In order to confirm his thoughts, he called several maids at home and asked them to watch the rough cut of the shooting scenes with him. Several aunt-level maids watched what their young master asked them to watch. The sound of the film was a bit noisy, and the story had no beginning or end. The meaning was probably simple. A middle-aged woman and a nigger were pretending to be in a hotel. Alan kept observing the maids' expressions while they were watching the film. From the beginning to the end, he saw that the expressions of several maids did not change much and asked, "Do you feel anything when you watch this film? What does it feel like?" The maid closest to Alan curled her lips and said, "Half an hour beforehand. 3 minutes of work. How can you feel? It's procrastinating. Master, this black man has a good figure. I don't remember anything else. Okay. Get out. Seeing that several aunts were tending to discuss the topic of black bodies, Alan waved his hand and told the maids to do whatever they wanted. The screening room became quiet again, and Alan finally confirmed his guess: empiricism kills people. The side effects he shot in the past were all for male audiences. That's not to say that other people, except men, can't watch it, but the main audience is men. During this shoot, he was very proud and spoke clearly, and the photographer also followed his request and took a good shot. But as soon as the semi-finished product came out, Alan discovered a problem. The audience for this film is mainly female, but now he is using the old method to shoot it from a male perspective, focusing only on Meryl. The consequences: even the maid didn't feel anything after seeing it. Isn't it going to get cold? It took a lot of effort to shoot a film, but even an aunt like this didn't feel anything after watching it. So how could she attract customers? His biggest problem was that he should not shoot the film from his own male perspective, but instead shoot the film from a female perspective. Fortunately, the problem was discovered early, and he still had room to correct it. On the set the next day, Alan invited Meryl to quietly explain the precautions for today's shooting. Meryl, our requirements today need to change a little bit. I need you to actively guide him with your emotions. Ellen reassigned Meryl the task and asked her to change her personality from the shy but expectant big sister she was a few days ago. Although Alan doesn't know much about women's psychology, they can trick each other. This thing is like a little brother helping a poor and fallen woman for the first time. He was obviously impatient and irritable in his heart, but on the surface he still tried his best to maintain his last dignity and pretended to be an experienced driver. Whenever a delinquent woman sees any flaws, the little brother will be psychologically shocked, so he will use this man's psychology to Meryl. Meryl and black actors, our personalities are inherently transparent. It can be said that I know what you want to do and what you need, and you also know what I want to do and why. It's that simple. Meryl looked suspicious and a little embarrassed. She had only been in the state for a few days, and her whole persona suddenly changed. Want to change from a reserved middle-aged woman who can't let go to a middle-aged woman who is impatient on the inside, but reserved on the outside. Looking at Meryl's expression, Alan emphasized, isn't it possible for you to change all your emotions directly, but to add these emotions to the previous ones? Director, give me some time. I'll try it first. Very good. I believe you. Alan patted Meryl on the shoulder. Meryl had been very obedient these past few days, fully demonstrating the professionalism of a professional actor. He could also quickly meet his requirements, which had given Alan an illusion. He added whatever he wanted, and it felt like Meryl could play it. He called in black actors and photographers again, and continued to explain the key points of the shooting. Alan would try to take as many shots of black people as possible this time, especially black people's bodies. Click. Stop. Alan frowned, wondering if it was because he added things randomly. This shot made him feel very awkward before he even looked at the semi-finished product. The emotion was there, but it was not at all what he expected. It even made him feel a little fake and unnatural. Take a break and try again. Click. It still didn't work the second time. Alan felt that it was a little better this time, but emotionally it still didn't make sense. Let the actors rest for a while and continue filming. Click. After several NGs in a row, the atmosphere on the entire set became a little depressing. As Alan clicked, reached out to hook his fingers, and ask Meryl to come over, the surrounding staff consciously hurriedly made room for them. What's wrong with you? I've done this several times. Why is it still not working? Do you need to go back to rest and adjust? Although a little impatient, Alan was not too angry. This is all normal. When filming, it can never be smooth sailing. Meryl bit her lip. She was a little in awe of Alan. To be honest, with Alan watching here, she couldn't let go. This was not a matter of professionalism, but an issue of identity. Being stared at and filmed by such a big shot, and having to play such a role, no matter how good her professionalism was, she couldn't focus on anything else. What's more, Alan now wants her to play a character who is honest and responsible on the surface, but eager to move on the inside, and then adds a little impatient on the surface, but can endure it. and finally wants to be debauched. If the scale here is not grasped well, it will not meet Alan's requirements. Looking at Alan seemingly caring, but actually indifferent eyes, Meryl sniffed and said, "I'm sorry, director, I think I need to make some adjustments today." "Okay. Let's call it a day." Alan doesn't doing either. There is something wrong with the heroine. Sharpening the knife does not waste time chopping wood. She cannot be rushed in her current state, and she must be given some time to adjust. As the staff on the set packed up things and moved equipment, Meryl, who stayed where she was and didn't move, looked a little irritated. Alan thought what he had just said was too harsh. After thinking about it, he walked up behind Meryl, patted her and said, "Well, what I just said was a bit harsh. Don't put too much psychological pressure on me." Chapter 53. Why hasn't she left yet? "Okay, let me treat you to dinner. You've been working hard lately, so don't be so stressed." Alan patted Meryl's shoulder habitually as he spoke. Meryl heard Alan's voice with her back turned and turned around quickly. Unexpectedly, Meryl turned around, and Alan patted her shoulder. This shot. "I almost took the photo in the wrong place." Alan took back his right hand, as if nothing had happened, and smiled at Meryl. "Okay, then I'll take off my makeup first." Meryl flipped her hair, nodded, and called her assistant to remove her makeup first. America also has manners, including various wealthy businessmen and big stars. Although Meryl does not have her own manor, she does have her own mansion. But the first time she came to the Hill family's manor, she was still shocked. Not to mention how gorgeous the layout and decoration here are. But there is a sense of history here that America does not have. The manners in the two places are basically incomparable in terms of cultural attributes. The Hill family's manor will give people the feeling of being in history. Walking all the way to the hall, looking at the decorations everywhere, although some things look a little old, it still makes Meryl a little envious. "Your home is so big." Meryl couldn't think of any words to use to praise this place. The only thing she felt was that it was big. Although the population of the manor has increased now, a manor that once served as a military depot with only a few dozen people living there would have seemed very empty and large. Alan smiled and walked in front, guiding Meryl to visit the lobby on the first floor. Looking at these real old objects in the exhibition room, a strong sense of history comes to my face. After taking Meryl through the process that every guest who comes to the home for the first time should go through, Alan is not showing off. This method is normal here, showing strength and glory. You used to Chinese food. Alan picked up a piece of shrimp. He likes to eat something light at night. This dish is Longjing shrimp made by the master chef in the kitchen. It has a very bland taste, but a good texture. There is Chinatown in Los Angeles. Sometimes when I'm tired from filming, I will go there to eat something to improve my taste. Meryl was not surprised to see that Ellen was able to use chopsticks proficiently. Although she was not proficient in using chopsticks, today's dishes could be eaten with a knife and fork. This seems very considerate. It is indeed a big family and they are very considerate. For so many days on the set, Meryl only saw the calm or working side of Alan. Having dinner together today actually made her feel the gentleman side of this veteran aristocrat. After a dinner that seemed very simple to Alan, after saying hello, Alan went to take a shower first. He doesn't have much interest in Meryl, a person who has been harassed by the opposite sex with love letters since he was in school, would care about a woman of this age. Inviting her to dinner was just to show sympathy for the employees. Just leave the rest to the butler, who came to Meryl's side with a smile, bent slightly and said, "Madam, do you need to rest for a while and have a cup of tea? Or should you go take a bath now?" After the meal was eaten and the master went to take a shower, the housekeeper came again to ask about the next step. Meryl, who had never been in contact with such an old nobleman, thought this was the normal procedure and followed Hute's question and said, "Then I'll go take a shower, please. It's all as it should be. Come with me. Please come this way." After taking a shower, Alan, who had been tired for a long day, took off his bathrobe, leaned on the head of the bed, crossed his legs, and picked up today's newspaper. The closer we get to Christmas, the more things happen. After this year, there will be a change of leadership next year. We see the clown-like competitors and Thatcher's people, both sides using their own methods to create news. Alan thought about his film again, and he worked harder to meet the deadline and try to release it next spring. It's spring. Everything is recovering. Animals are in the season of mating again, and this kind of hormone-filled movie is just the right time, place, and people. Now other preliminary preparations have been steadily advanced, and we are just waiting for his movie. When the time comes, hey, maybe I can give the Prime Minister a hard blow. Although I have no grievances with her, the more times like this, the more suitable it is to gain popularity. Bang, bang, bang. A gentle knock on the door came from far away. Alan thought it was Hooter who had something to do, so he whispered softly without raising his head, "Come in." After waiting for a long time without hearing Hooter's voice, Alan put down the newspaper, pinched his eyebrows, and looked towards the bedroom door with some doubts. Meryl was wearing a light blue floral patterned bathrobe, and she was leaning quietly against the doorframe of his bedroom. Alan's first thought when he saw her was, why hasn't she left yet? But it would be embarrassing to say this at this time, in this place, and in this context. Finished. Wash. When Meryl saw Alan finally looking at her, she walked towards Alan's bed politely and loosened the ties on the bathrobe around her waist. Alan looked at her posture. Come all come. Alan used to like to give instructions to some little sisters on their acting skills at night. However, after traveling through time, it was clear that he had an advantage in terms of innate conditions, but the old earl was very strict and would not let him come here casually. In families like this, under normal circumstances, tutoring is still very strict when the children are young. Let's not talk about what they will be like when they grow up. But when I was young, I was definitely not allowed to do miscellaneous things later. After joining the Royal Navy, I had several experiences when ships docked, but they were often not enjoyable. Now facing the American young lady in front of me, although she is a bit older, there are advantages to being older. She knows a lot. Alan didn't know what Meryl's skills were before, but wouldn't he find out later? More than half an hour later, after taking a deep breath, Alan pushed Meryl away, pulled the bell, and called the maid. Meryl felt a little embarrassed when she saw this scene. Although she sat still while putting on makeup, waiting for the makeup artist to put makeup on her, it was like she was at home. She even had to take a shower and tidy up. She was a little embarrassed to be served by the maid. Alan hugged her, rubbed his right hand and said, "Go and clean up." Usually, when he is at home, he can lie down but not sit, and sit but not stand. If it wasn't for him being unaccustomed to being fed, he would have waited with his mouth open. Ever since he came here, let alone taking a shower, even when he went to the toilet, he was served by a servant. Now, he is not used to this kind of service from a maid at all. Chapter 54. Charles Spencer. After the two of them had tidied up, they asked the maid to bring some more safety measures and put them on the bedside for later use. Alan caught a glimpse of the newspaper that was placed on the bedside. Looking at the photo of the Prime Minister, he turned to look at Meryl next to him. A strange feeling gradually arose in my heart. Now that Meryl has taken off her makeup, of course she has nothing to do with the person in the photo. Change into this look tomorrow. Alan pointed to the photo in the newspaper. In just 2 days, the crew seems to have changed, but it seems to have stayed the same. During the day, Alan was still filming when he was supposed to be filming. He was still so strict with Meryl, and he was still noisy when she didn't perform well. Return to the manor in the evening. Alan seemed to be a different person again, with a gentle tone, directing Meryl to play various roles and change into matching uniforms. On the afternoon of December 20th. Alan, who had just finished work, returned to the manor by car. As soon as he entered the hall, he saw an old acquaintance whom he had not seen for a while. Butler Capel. "Why is Sir Capel free to come to my place today? Could it be that His Highness is here?" Alan said half jokingly, glancing at Hooter, who was chatting with Capel next to him. Hooter shook his head slightly and pointed at the invitation on the table. Seeing this gorgeously wrapped invitation, Alan was stunned for a moment before he remembered that it was almost Christmas. "Your Excellency," Hooter said, "that you were at work, so I couldn't disturb you over there, so I just waited here for a while. I came here this time to confirm whether you would attend the private banquet held by His Highness on the evening of the 23rd. Capel picked up the invitation, bent slightly and handed it to Alan with both hands. After receiving the invitation, Alan didn't rush to check it. He first looked at something like a receipt on it. This thing and the invitation are in duplicate. For important banquets, guests are invited a few days in advance to leave sufficient preparation time for the guests. If they are confirmed to attend the banquet, the guests must also sign a receipt. The banquet party will eventually count the number of people attending the banquet. The actual number of people must be prepared in advance according to the number of people. At that time, the receipt will also be a security certificate. Not everyone can attend a private banquet like the one held by Charles, although Alan's heart trembled instinctively when he heard that Charles was holding another banquet. But I have to go. The invitation was delivered personally by Charles's butler. Needless to say, how important is it? Alan raised his right hand, and Capel was a little startled. He quickly took the pen from the outer pocket of his jacket and handed it to Alan with both hands. He didn't expect that Alan didn't even read the content of the invitation and signed it so decisively. It seems that His Highness is always right. In the entire kingdom, the most loyal person to His Highness is the Earl of Carmarthen. After signing the receipt slip and confirming his attendance at Charles' banquet, Capel did not stay long. He had to rush back overnight to get back to work. If he stayed for a while, it would get late, and the night road from Carmarthen to London would be difficult. After seeing Capel off, Alan had time to open the invitation and check it. It is scheduled for December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas. Because it was Charles's private banquet, it could only be held on this day. On Christmas Eve, the entire royal family would have to spend it together. Seeing the location of this banquet, Alan raised his eyebrows slightly. This place, it was indeed a private banquet, and Charles directly set the venue at his favorite Highgrove Manor. When I first heard the name, it seemed very ordinary, but this manor was well known to everyone inside as Charles's pet peeve. It was only a few years ago that Charles bought this place. Everything was newly renovated, and it occupies a large area. 4.5 million square meters. To roughly describe this area, find a reference point. Shireman Square. The area of Highgrove Manor is roughly equivalent to the size of 12 Shireman Squares combined. This kind of area is almost as big as a small county town. This is the place that Charles devoted his efforts to decorating and used as a wedding room. It is his real home. Being able to hold a private banquet here, it is conceivable that not many guests will be invited, but everyone is his confidant or close minister. After putting down the invitation, Alan thought for a while and said to Hooter, the land deed they brought back a few days ago, put it in the most gorgeous gift box for me. I will use it when the time comes. I understand, Master. On the evening of December 23rd, more than 100 kilometers west of Carmarthen, there was Highgrove Manor, straddling the middle between Carmarthen and London. With the help of the afterglow of the evening, Alan looked at the endless white world that he could see. Under the snow marks, you can still vaguely see the internal layout of the entire large manor, a large garden of more than 4 million square meters. How fucking arrogant must this be? This is a scale that those group of American hicks can't even imagine. Compared with this place, the Hill family's manor is like the difference between a thatched house and a 4-story villa with a garden. There is no comparison at all. From the gate to the downstairs of the owner's house, it takes several minutes to drive hard and hit the accelerator, finally arriving at the gate of Charles's manor. Capel saw the license plate number from a distance, waited beside the car with a young man, and opened the door for Alan himself. Alan smiled at Capel, handed the small wooden box with gold rim in his left hand to Capel and said, okay, give this to His Highness. You don't need to greet me here immediately. Afterwards, Alan ignored Capel, but turned to look at the young man who accompanied Capel to pick up the car. He has a little golden hair with a slight brown tint. The young man looks very handsome. His overall facial features are 2 or 3 points similar to Alan. If he said that they were cousins, some people would probably believe him. Should I call you Spencer or Charles? As Alan spoke, he made a fist with his right hand and pointed it at the handsome boy's stomach, ready to give him a hard blow. I was wrong. Alan, I can't beat you. A guest is coming. Save some face for me. The Little brown-haired golden retriever started to hide when he saw Alan's movements. If in front of other people, he is still very tough. There are few people in the whole of Great Britain that he can't afford to offend. The brother-in-law of His Royal Highness Charles, the biological brother of the princess, the eldest son of the Spencer family, and the future Earl Spencer. Isn't this series of titles convincing enough? What's more, this guy's name is even Charles Spencer, the same name as his brother-in-law. But even with such a badass status, he was still very afraid of Alan Point because the two families were related by marriage. When Spencer first met Alan as a teenager, he asked Alan to call him Uncle Point. The age difference between the two is only more than 3 years, and he is only a little older than Alan Point. Spencer, who was very proud at the time, happened to meet Alan, who had just arrived, was not good at language, and was depressed all day long. Is it okay to be taken advantage of by such a little brat? At that time, Alan held the guy down and gave him a hard hammer on the ground. From then on, Alan would hit him every time he saw him. From the time he was a teenager, Spencer was relieved until Alan joined the army. The relationship between the two is both relatives and friends. Alan does the hammering, and Spencer takes the beating. PS. Chapter 53 was uploaded yesterday, and was later deleted and edited before being released. The original version was posted in the group, and nothing was done. It was just a small car. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55. Is this what you call busy with business? Snort. After looking at the car coming from behind, Alan didn't want to argue with Spencer anymore. He put his left hand in his pocket and walked slowly inside. Seeing that Alan had calmed down, Spencer came to Alan's side and asked concernedly, "When did you come back?" "I just found out a few days ago that something happened to Cano." "Hey, news of the old Earl's accident only spread among the upper echelons. N-generation nobles like Spencer who have not inherited the title are not qualified to know. He doesn't care much about such things. If he hadn't come a few days ago, attending the banquet, he was kept in the dark." "Accident? Your Highness handled it personally. Don't ask any more questions." Alan didn't want to say more about this matter, so it passed slowly. Spencer thought that Alan was not as sad as he was in the past, so he simply changed the topic and said, "Go to my place after the evening. I will take you to have fun. I will introduce you to a few." He wanted to introduce some girls, but then he remembered Alan's glorious deeds in the past. Spencer looked at Alan with some embarrassment and gave him a knowing look. "You think I'm you? You're a loser. I have business to do. I don't have time to go to your place." TSK, 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 you have a shitty business. Others don't know Alan's details, but Spencer knows it too well. This guy used to have a very boring personality and didn't like to talk much. He didn't go to some activities organized by close aristocratic children. He just looked like this all day long. She is like an aristocratic lady, never leaving the door or taking a step forward. How can something serious be done with something like this? Alan paused, and before Spencer could react, he grabbed his neck and pressed him down. He said in a dark voice, "My inheritance tax matter is still pending. How about you go back and kill me? They stole all my bank cards, lent me millions of pounds to support me, and asked me to pay my taxes first." "Millions of pounds? Even if you sell me, I won't be able to get that much money." "Alan, I suddenly remembered that my sister told me later that I have something else to do. You should be busy first. Let's talk when we have time." Spencer struggled hard, trying to pry away Alan's arm that was tightly wrapped around his neck. "Humph. Don't you want to play with me? Are you here and want to run away?" Spencer bent over hard, learned the Eastern fist clasping etiquette, raised his hands and said, "I call you uncle. Can I call you uncle? Please let me go." Late. Alan relieved his strength slightly to make Spencer feel less depressed and continued to turn him forward, saying as he walked, "Since you have no money, then you can contribute and help me pay off the debt. After the matter is completed, I can still give it to you." "Oh." Spencer wanted to ask, but Alan's arm suddenly let go. When he straightened his head, he realized that His Royal Highness Charles was watching the two of them fighting from a distance, with a look on his face that seemed a little unhappy. HMPH. This is not the place to talk. If you come to Carmarthen to see me after Christmas, you will be dead. If you don't come, then I will tell you that you stole my love letters and pretended to be my replies. No, uncle. You are my uncle. I was wrong. I must go find you. Seeing Alan threatening even this kind of privacy, Spencer was completely cowed. You, Charles, looked at Alan and his brother-in-law who walked up to him, as if nothing had happened. He didn't know what to say. Although there were not many guests at today's banquet, what could it be like for two grown men to fight in the hall? Your Highness, Spencer and I haven't seen each other for several years. I was a little excited for a while. Do you think it's Spencer? Yes, Your Highness. You know that the relationship between Alan and I is very good. Glancing left and right at the faces of Alan and Spencer, Charles reluctantly agreed to this statement. Walk with me. Charles pointed to the side and led Alan towards the terrace point. Seeing Charles calling him, Alan pointed at Spencer again before leaving and made a threatening mouth gesture to him, then turned around and trotted 2 steps to follow Charles. I've been a little busy lately. I have to attend a lot of events and I haven't been able to take care of you. What are you going to do in the future? After taking the cigar cut by his servant, Charles asked, tilted his head, and started to light the cigar. What to do in the future? It is not possible to just eat and wait for death. We can only make money and save our lives due to the pressure of life. Alan organized his words and said, Your Highness, I'm planning to reorganize the family business recently. Okay. Before Alan could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Charles. In this way, you first go to Cambridge University to catch up on your studies, and after a few years, you will be asked to intern at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for 2 years. When I go on visits in the future, you can follow me. Alan looked at Charles speechlessly. He is almost dying of poverty, so why should he study? Your Highness, I have been busy with business recently. Our family's inheritance tax. Charles narrowed his eyes and looked at Alan with a flat expression. How could he not understand this reason? It's not like inheritance tax can't be delayed. Small nobles don't dare to delay it. How dare you, the Hill family, not delay it? What's more, it's not like he doesn't know about Alan's information. It felt uncomfortable to be stared at by Charles all the time. Alan sniffed and whispered, Your Highness, I don't want to go to school. I think you are obsessed with female stars, right? If you don't want to go to school, why don't you become a bullshit director? Play around during the day and play with female stars at night. If this gets out, how will outsiders see you? This is what you said. Are you busy with business? Alan had a toothache. No one had treated him like this in years. He was scolded, like he was lecturing his son. It was not my initiative. She came here on her own. Using his last strength, Alan was still ready to struggle. Your Highness, this is it. After perfectly covering up his plan again, Alan described it to Charles, concerned about the mental health of middle-aged and elderly women in the country. Charles looked at Alan with some suspicion. This reason made him not know how to complain. Then, what did you just ask Capel to give me? Charles remembered clearly that Capel had just given him a small gift from the Earl of Carmarthen. A title deed. It's still a land deed in the Gambia, Africa. It seems to be some kind of small ranch. Ah. Haha, Your Highness, don't you like hunting? I happen to have some business dealings with the people over there, so I bought a small hunting ground there and kept a few lions in captivity. When spring comes next year, you can go there and spend your time there, vacationing, hunting. Alan's current network of connections is not large, but it is very strong. His biggest supporter at present is the British Crown Prince in front of him. No other relationship can compare with the weight of this person. According to Alan's idea, not to mention too much. First bribe Charles to find a small hunting ground in Gambia, and then trick him into going hunting next spring, and he will be able to operate later. Who can't? Use a fox to pretend to be a tiger. By then, who among outsiders will know whether the British Crown Prince went to Gambia for hunting or to support his Allen campaign? They didn't have the chance to ask Charles in person, so why not just let Allen say whatever he wanted? Do you dare to believe those ignorant country officials in Gambia? Chapter 56. The acting is quite real. This land deed is what Allen specifically told him. Point. As long as it is given to Charles at the right time, his future business in the Gambia will be considered stable. Point. As for Hart and the Department of Noble Affairs, it was an open relationship. With their endorsement, if anything happened in other places, it would have nothing to do with Allen. Yeah. Charles nodded, accepting this reason. Fox is dead. Did you know that? Allen raised his eyebrows and said, Your Highness, this has nothing to do with me. On the day he left, I went to the port to see him off. It's said that he was so angry that he died. Charles glanced at Allen with a half smile. Seeing his sincere face, he didn't say much and reached out to pat Allen on the shoulder. There was a banquet of eating and drinking. Everyone held Charles in their hands and chatted happily until about 9 o'clock in the evening. Point. By the time Allen got home, it was almost 11 o'clock. Point. Uteth saw that his young master didn't drink too much and said with a smile, Master, in the evening, Rex sent some cash. He also wanted to see you, but I blocked him. Did the money come? Yes. How much in total? 1.32 million. I have already counted it and put it in the collection room. But when he heard that the money was finally delivered, Allen was relieved, and now he finally had more money on hand. Point. It is not easy for a Korean company to squeeze out so much money, although it is still far from what was expected. Rex wants to launder the money. Many processes in the process have to be lost, and the remaining amount does not exceed AI Lun's expectations, but the money is now in Allen's hands. If he wants to spend it, he will have to go to trouble. Fortunately, the problem is not big. Isn't there still a crew? Isn't the purpose of preparing a film crew just to solve many things that are usually difficult to solve, such as fame, influence, and unknown sources of funds? But Rex wants to see you. Putting down the teacup in his hand, Allen opened the top drawer of the desk. Point. He took out a piece of manuscript paper, handed it to Hute and said, After Christmas, you ask Rex to come over and show him this. And I won't see him again. Who? Te looked at the manuscript that clearly recorded the benefits that Rex shared with his subordinates. He also thought that this work had taken so many days. This is why the young master ordered some Rex. Point. There are many people who want to do things for the count. If you don't do something well, or do it slowly, there will naturally be people who report it and want to take your place. I understand. Master, please rest early. I'll go down first. From the 23rd to the 26th, the crew will be on holiday. December 27th was the first day of work for the crew. Point. Inside the hotel. Point. On the double bed, there was a large iron frame placed horizontally. Allen hugged his shoulders and watched several staff members testing the firmness of the frame. Point. This was specially built for filming sex scenes. It mainly shoots the heroine lying on her back on the bed. Point. Today's cameras are so heavy that 1 or 2 people have to carry them, and they have to shoot this kind of semi-overlooking shot. It's too difficult and dangerous, so this iron frame is the reason. Point. Spencer stood beside Allen with some curiosity, looking at everything on the set and feeling fresh. Point. He gently tugged on Allen's sleeve with his right hand and said, Is this what you've been doing lately? Allen saw Meryl sitting where he indicated, thinking he was asking something, so he nodded. It's boring, isn't this interesting? Isn't that why you have parties? I'll show you something more interesting than this tonight. Allen, who was somewhat unconvinced, didn't want to argue with Spencer. Spencer looked at Allen inexplicably. He asked the crew a question about filming without knowing why. Allen seemed a little unconvinced. Director, get ready. Have all the safety tests passed? Don't worry, then. Let's try taking a picture. This film is not a large-scale one, but if you want to shoot a passionate scene, how should you shoot it? It all depends on the heroine herself. Point. As for Ziohezi, there is no need for him at all. Here, he is just a tool. Point. The setting of this scene is very simple. Meryl just pretends to be pushed down on the bed by Ziohezi. Point. The camera was set up on the bed, looking down to capture only Meryl's facial expressions from her tense face. to her frowning, to the slightly relieved feeling of painful pleasure, until finally her whole body is shaking, painful and happy. This complete process must be done through the lens of this angle. Relying on the female, the Lord himself interprets it. What stands out is a first person perspective. Fortunately, Meryl has communicated with Alan frequently these days, and was very experienced in meeting all the requirements for this scene. She only took 2 takes, and passed it smoothly. This actor is great. His acting is quite realistic, although he is an outsider. Meryl's acting skills made Spencer feel as if he was actually there. Of course, if her acting skills are not good, how can I use her? Let's go back to eat. I'll show you something fun tonight. Let the crew pack their things and shoot this scene today. After this scene is finished, all that is left is to finish. The same room layout, the same prop arrangement, and even the actors' clothes are the same. Apart from the different actors, there is basically no other difference. This is where crew B is located. The filming location is not far from crew A. We usually think they are all members of the crew and don't communicate much. We only know that these people were filming at night. We thought they were the director after he went back and saw the rough cut of the footage. The crew filming the reshoots, Alan himself was also curious, and Spencer, who had the same curious look on his face, stood quietly behind the director to observe and learn the real passionate scene shot by the B crew. After the scene was filmed, Spencer looked a little unnatural and said, "Where shall we go later?" "Go home, go home. You take me to finish this and let me go home." Spencer stared at Alan with a look of disbelief on his face. "You show me this and you don't have anything to express? What does it mean?" Spencer's eyes glanced at the 2 actors on the bed, then looked at Alan next to him, giving him hints frantically. "Then I'll ask her to accompany you later." "Never mind." Spencer looked at the actress with a slightly red face and a tired look on her face. Just now, this actress was watched by him throughout the whole process of performing a very real passionate scene. Now that it was really coming to him, when Alan mentioned it, he was not interested either. Well, he just followed Alan to see what was new. "Humph, you idiot." Alan looked at Spencer's aggrieved look and felt secretly happy. This was what he wanted. It not only arouses you, but also leaves you nowhere to vent. If only when his movie was released, all those rich women could be like Spencer now. Don't hesitate and buy a ticket to Gambia. Chapter 57 Banjul. Early the next morning. After breakfast, Spencer followed Butler Hud to Alan's bedroom to discuss things with Alan. As soon as he walked out of the stairs and saw Meryl coming out of Alan's bedroom from a distance, Spencer pointed at Meryl and asked this, Alan and the others, thinking of Alan taking him to see some fun things last night. He left him in the guest room, and now, this stupid self is having fun in the bedroom without even taking him with him. Fortunately, I praised this American actress for her acting skills. You have a small job with the director every night, and everyone has to be good at acting. You bitches. Huta looked at Spencer's expression and smiled without saying anything. He stretched out his right hand to signal Spencer to go first. When Meryl passed by them, she nodded and greeted Butler Huta. "How was your rest last night?" Alan was wearing a bathrobe and sitting in front of the desk. There was also an old map on the desk. Spencer raised his chin, not particularly wanting to talk to Alan. He sat across from the desk, crossed his legs, and looked at Alan's bedroom layout. Huta looked at them with a smile and asked, "Master, what do you want to drink?" "Have a cup of milk tea," Spencer said before Huta asked. "I wanted to." "Okay, just a second." Watching Huta walk out of the room, Alan pointed to the map on the table and said, "Look, do you recognize this place?" Spencer shrugged his nose. The room without windows was not very ventilated and was filled with a fishy smell. He glanced at Alan and said, "Don't look." Seeing that Alan was about to stand up, Spencer blinked and his tone quickly changed. I know. Isn't it Gambia? I need you to make some promises for me in your name. Anyway, your family is familiar there." "What? Promise?" Spencer looked at the map on the table. The map of the entire Gambia was like an earthworm, distributed along the river, and the farther inside it became, the poorer it became. Alan pointed to the map of Gambia and reiterated his plan to Spencer in general. "You want to do this?" Spencer was slightly disgusted. But Alan doesn't care about this. He makes money, so he doesn't shiver. Originally, he wanted to personally come forward for this kind of thing, but now that he has Spencer as a tool, he can take it out first and let Spencer go on top. The entire Gambia is lacking in mineral resources, but this lack is seen from a national perspective. Millions of tons of mixed ores of titanium, zirconium, and rutile are too few for private individuals. Plus, what if he bought the land at a price lower than the cabbage price? Even if you only buy a small portion. Once it changes hands, it will all be money. It's just that the process in between is more troublesome, and you need to seduce Gambia's leading party and make them willing to sell it at a low price. This requires sufficiently attractive conditions. Alan's plan is to use the title to seduce. As long as the profits are great, why wouldn't these people dare to sell? When they make enough money, we can help them solve the problem of naturalization in Great Britain, and then take them to live in Great Britain. It's not that Spencer doesn't look down on these interests, but after such a process, it doesn't seem like he can make much money, and he has to work hard to arrange these leading parties. Pulling out a cigarette and handing it to Spencer, Alan said with a cold look, after they come to dating, what else will we do? And we still have to let them do it? By then, I will give you half of these people's net worth. Spencer's expression froze. This was really a shame. Everything in the early stage is to let them do things for him better. After all the things are done, he will seduce them back and then kill the donkey. You are grinding. Why don't you do it dry? Since he has not inherited the title, Spencer's life has been like that in the past few years. He has not been able to be as cool as Alan is now. Now that the opportunity is in front of him, and Alan threatens him with the past, now he plans to. I've heard it all. What if I don't do it? After rubbing the dark circles under his eyes after not sleeping well all night, and before Hooter brought the milk tea, Spence rubbed his thighs again, and stood up and said, I still have something to do, so I'm going back first. I need to step in, if you need me. When the time comes, just tell me. Hahaha. January 22, 1987. Banjul Yundum Airport, the Gambia. 3 specially modified off-road vehicles with bulletproof glass and a dozen ordinary off-road vehicles were parked in a row beside the airport runway. Leolu led a fat black man, who was only about 1.7 meters tall, and quietly watched the plane taxiing on the runway. Your Excellency is coming. Let's get ready. Yes. Yes, donkey. This is Sir Spencer. Alan took Spencer off the plane. The first time he saw the old donkey, he introduced Spencer behind him. The Earl's children usually enjoy the treatment and title of knight before inheriting the title, so when he introduced Spencer, he called him knight. This was just a simple title. Hello, sir. Welcome to Gambia. Master, this is Rorog, pointing to the fat black man next to him. The old donkey introduced Alan. Smiling at Rorog, Alan looked behind the old donkey again and asked with some confusion, where is the doctor? Why didn't he come? Although everyone was comrades in arms when they were serving, they now have a semi-master-servant relationship. This time Alan came to the Gambia in person, and it was impossible for the doctor not to come to pick him up. This was a matter of courtesy. Well, Your Excellency, it's like this. The hospital encountered a little problem and there was some delay. When Rorog heard Alan's inquiry, he spoke first and explained before the old donkey could explain. You go and sit in the back of the car. Old donkey comes here. Let's go to the hospital now. You tell me what's going on. Alan didn't want to hear Rorog's explanation at all. How could he come to greet him with such a small problem? A convoy of more than a dozen off-road vehicles left the airport and drove toward Banjul. Banjul is the largest port city in the Gambia, and its overall infrastructure is ranked among the top cities in the country. The professional testing institution planned by doctors was built in Banjul. When Alan came to Gambia this time, he brought 30 bodyguards alone. And they were also fully armed bodyguards with rifles. These people were all recruited from the Navy. They were all young and strong, not the old guys in his family. The total number of troops in Gambia now totals less than 600. These people are not together yet, but are distributed in multiple cities, and they have to protect their political officials. To put it bluntly, the equipment and combat effectiveness of Alan's bodyguard team this time can equal the entire Gambia. He wanted to see what little problem there was at the hospital. Alan is a thief from several gangs. He stole our things, which contained various testing reagents. The old donkey sat in the car and introduced today's little accident to Alan in a low voice. What are they stealing these things for? Some medical supplies are inedible, so why steal them? Chapter 58 Small accident. Perhaps they sell it, or eat it? Who knows what they think? The old donkey shrugged. Some things cannot be viewed with common sense. In Alan's opinion, many things are useless, or have certain negative effects in the eyes of these black people. They are all treasures. If they steal one or two things, and bring them back, they can sell them, if they can make money. If they can't sell them, they will steal something else next time. It's all costless anyway. Have these people stolen many times? Seeing the old donkey's unsurprised expression, Alan frowned slightly. How long had this testing institution been open for? So long that it attracted such voyeurs. Are they all such little bastards? Alan, who is relatively sensitive, first thought of whether there was someone behind them, or in other words, who sent them to test his attitude. First test his attitude by stealing a little, and then take advantage of it. Today they dare to steal testing reagents, but will they steal testing equipment tomorrow? Will he have to move all his testing institutions the day after tomorrow? The equipment there was something he had worked so hard to apply for in the name of Carmarthen Town Hospital. There have been 4 or 5 times in total. Things are lost every few days. Sometimes we find them late and can't catch them. The old donkey thought about it carefully and was a little unsure. Didn't Rorog take any measures? What can he do? Faced with Alan's inquiry, Leolu was also a little puzzled. There were only a few hundred soldiers in this poor place. If they were scattered again, how many soldiers would be left when it was Banjal's turn? And these people are not doing serious business either. Okay, I get it. Taking a deep breath, Alan became a little angry. It's not because of throwing away such a small thing, but because the embankment of 1,000 miles collapsed in the ant nest, not far from the port scenic area. Outside a 2-story building with a courtyard, dozens of black people were gathered around. Some of these people seemed to be gloating, and some were still yelling and taking pictures. The courtyard door was closed, and someone was muttering something. When this scene came into Alan's eyes, the speed of the off-road vehicle had slowed down, and Alan was fastening himself on the seat belt. He patted Xiao on the driver's seat on the shoulder and said, "Did you see those people surrounding the gate? Master, do we want to stop the car? No, speed up and hit us." After hearing this, Xiao honked the horn several times, quickly overtook the car in front, accelerated, and crashed straight into the gate of the courtyard. Because it had just decelerated, overtaken, and changed lanes, the current off-road vehicle could not pick up the speed, and was too close to the gate. A few smarter black people knew how to hide, but there were 2 or 3 others who didn't react. They were caught off guard, and were knocked down by the off-road vehicle with both people and the door behind them. Bang. %. %**. The sound of the iron door being knocked open was mixed with screams. The off-road vehicle seemed to have hit something. It heaved violently and plunged into the yard. The off-road vehicle stopped in the compound, and Alan was in no hurry to get out of the car. After the collision, the people behind him knew what to do, as long as they were not stupid. Bang, bang, bang. Rorog stood anxiously outside the back window of the off-road vehicle and knocked on the glass a few times. When the window was lowered, he breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Alan, who was safe and sound, and said, "Sir, are you okay?" "It's okay, just wait." Alan glanced back. In just a few minutes, the situation was under control. A bodyguard walked to Alan's car window and said, "It's all under control." "How many people are there in total?" 19. "Okay. Everyone, go to the yard and watch. Move the gate." "Where's the doctor?" "Old donkey. Go find him and see if he's dead." There was so much commotion in the yard, and the doctor hadn't shown up yet. Alan couldn't figure out what was going on for a while, so he asked the old donkey to explore the way first. What happened on the 2nd floor of the small hospital? Alan finally saw the doctor. The guy had a deep cut on his arm, and the nurse was suturing him urgently. "Hey, it's all a trivial matter. There aren't many people here. I caught them stealing, so I stopped them and got scratched." The Doctor reluctantly raised his right arm. What? Did they steal? This was what Alan was most curious about. He originally thought there were just 1 or 2 thieves, but now there were 19 people, and it was almost half-hearted robbery. Morphine. The doctor was a little shy and embarrassed, so he explained. A few days ago, there was a patient with a broken leg, and we helped treat him. Maybe they recognized him at that time, and these people got the idea of morphine. Very good. Very good. You rescued them, but not only did they not thank you for your kindness, but they also stole things in return. Are they even ready to rob? Rorog. Alan pinched his waist and walked to the window in 2 steps. From this angle, he could see the entire front yard clearly. 18 of the 19 people were squatting on the ground, holding their heads in their hands. There was only one unlucky guy, who must have been hit by a car just now. He was lying on the ground moaning with his thighs in his arms. Is this how you treat investors? The hospital manager was actually attacked in the hospital. Looking at Rorog's dark, oily face, Alan raised his hand, then held back. Your Excellency, this is our negligence. I didn't expect this to happen. Luo. Luoj took out a small white embroidered handkerchief and nervously wiped the sweat from his forehead. This aristocratic gentleman encountered such a thing as soon as he got off the plane. He really couldn't explain it. In just one pickup time, so many troublemakers gathered. But right now, even if there was no way to explain, the situation had to be stabilized. Rorog glanced at the group of losers squatting in the courtyard downstairs, feeling secretly resentful. Shitao, I remember I asked them to bring here some small firecrackers, right? Alan looked downstairs with his hands behind his back. She glanced at the doctor in confusion, and the two looked at each other. The doctor said, it seems there are still some in the warehouse. After hearing the doctor's words, Alan said, go and find some ways to help these garbage below. Yes, Master. Spencer walked up to Alan, held Alan up with his elbow, and asked in a low voice, what are you going to do? It's very simple. Just let them remember it for a long time. Alan squinted his eyes and did not look back at Spencer, but kept staring at the people in the yard below. Without keeping Alan waiting, Zio Shitao's sturdy figure walked out of the office building and finally appeared on campus. He carried a small cardboard box in his hand, called several bodyguards who were guarding him, and whispered a few words. The small cardboard box was handed to them. A few brave black people looked at this group of fierce white bodyguards and didn't know what was waiting for them next. A few of them were careless and started to struggle. Although they didn't yell, their attitude still looked very arrogant. Chapter 59. Do you have a long memory? A black thief, with his hands tied behind his back, was dragged to the open space in the middle of the yard by the bodyguard squatting beside him. The bodyguard took out a few small red firecrackers. These are small firecrackers sold in many places in Chinatown. Foreigners also like this thing very much. They like to set off firecrackers whenever a place opens. Some foreigners imitate them and set off these firecrackers during festive times. Today's individual small firecrackers are removed from the hanging firecrackers, gently stuffing a small firecracker into the black thief's ear hole. The bodyguard smiled at the frightened black man, took out a windproof lighter, and let the fuse of the firecracker plugged into the black man's ear hole. Bump. From a little distance, the firecrackers sounded like a crisp sound, but the screams of the black people were hysterical. The ears are inherently one of the most vulnerable parts of the human body, not to mention ear piercings, which are closest to the brain. At close range, a seemingly insignificant firecracker was inserted into the ear hole and exploded. When the eardrum was shattered, the whole person's brain was buzzing, as if it had exploded, and dark blood was mixed with it. A bit of grey smoke slowly flowed out from the ear hole. Seeing the treatment of the black people in the middle of the yard, several black people around him started to get really scared, and some even struggled to beg for mercy. But it was all in vain. These bodyguards had no nonsense with them. Every black man could not escape. He was pulled over in turn. A firecracker was first placed in one ear hole, and then lit one after another. Screams came and went. Luoj looked at the tragic situation in the yard with wide eyes. A little incredible. This method is too cruel, and the external injury is not obvious. This kind of small firecrackers can't even hurt the ears, but the inner. Just listen to the screams of these people and you will know that pain cannot be deceived. Just such a small firecracker. These people are already useless. Luoj has seen some people become incontinent after being frightened. There were 19 people. No one was too small, and each one was served by the little firecracker for one round. When everyone was taken care of, the bodyguard started a new round from the first person, blasting another ear hole. Luoj couldn't bear to say in a low voice, "Your Excellency." Hearing his voice, Alan raised his left hand to stop him from speaking and asked instead, "Today they dare to steal things and hurt people in the hospital. What will happen next? Are they going to hurt tourists? Do you know what this project does to me? What does that mean? What you have to do now is not to sympathize with them, but to think about how to strengthen security here. You will make arrangements for these people later. Get them all away. Don't dirty my hospital." By the way, Alan turned to look at the doctor who had just finished the stitches and said, "Who hurt you just now?" The doctor raised his bandaged arm and pointed in a direction downstairs with his left hand. "Okay, Rorog, go ahead. Cut off his hand yourself so that he can have memory." Facing Alan's cold gaze, Rorog quickly lowered his head, not daring to look at him. After hesitating for a long time, he finally nodded and said, "I will do a good job, Your Excellency." Watching Rorog leave the room, Spencer hesitated and said, "Aren't you afraid that he will hold a grudge?" "Having a grudge? Huh? How do you think he has a conscience? Maybe he is the instigator behind this group of people." Alan smiled, put his right hand on Spencer's shoulder and said, "I will definitely not be able to run here often in the future. You are more leisurely than me. When you have nothing to do, you can come over and take a look. Like if people like them don't have the ability to help us handle some small things, why would they have the face to ask for dividends? When the time comes, you can take their children back and place them in a school, or you can take them to dating when you are not busy to experience a different world. When they taste the sweetness, they will realize the lack of money. Once you experience the taste, you will be completely corrupted. When the time comes, we will offer to give him a kickback and let them help us get the land at a low price, and they will be motivated." Spencer hated Alan strategizing in front of him, which made him look stupid. Some were unconvinced and said, "What if they don't cooperate? What if they don't get corrupted?" When Alan heard Spencer's argument, he turned his head and looked at Spencer with a retarded look. "Where is this? This is the Gambia, not London. He won't cooperate. Get rid of him and find someone who is willing to cooperate. It's okay. There are many people behind him who want to cooperate with us. As for who cooperates with us in the end, does it make any difference? I only look at the results." Spencer grinned. He felt like he had been on a pirate ship and still couldn't get off point after the recent period of understanding. Spencer also figured out Alan's operating mode and purpose, and what Alan is doing now is to blatantly take it out in front of him. This entire industry chain is officially done in the name of economic support from the Ministry of Noble Affairs, and Spencer's future mission is to seduce these Gambian officials, corrupt them, and then when the time is right, he will make a big deal, eat them all and leave. And what role does Alan play in this? Nothing works. Even his visit to Gambia this time was for the purpose of filming a movie. What's even more outrageous is that, in order to completely remove himself, this old cunt even thought of a countermeasure before the filming of the movie started. The plot of his movie is about a British widow who comes to Gambia by boat to look for black ducks. In the future, after the movie is released, most people will subconsciously think that such an industry already existed in the Gambia before this movie was made. And he, Alan, just made a movie based on this theme. Almost no one would think in the opposite direction and discover that Alan was driving an industry chain in the opposite direction in the name of making movies. This is a trick that relies on the inertia of ordinary people's thinking. That is, the principle of darkness under the lamp. After the whole process, Alan basically has nothing to do with this matter. This is an example of being both responsible and established. Spencer's mouth twitched, preparing to hold back another sentence. To mock the timid Alan, a louder scream came from the courtyard downstairs, so loud that it woke Spencer up. Looking down the window, the fat Rolog stood up slowly with a fire axe in his hand. The black man under him was twisting on the ground in pain with his wrist in his arms. Look. These people. You have to urge them and force them to do things, and then they will help you do things honestly. Don't expect them to take any initiative. Alan smiled, raised his eyebrows at Spencer, and stared at the people downstairs, as if looking at a clown. After I go back, if anyone steals or robs things here in the future, they will have to follow today's process. I don't believe they will dare to come again after doing it a few more times. Chapter 60 Operation. Yes, Rorog called a few shabby pickup trucks and loaded the black men away like dead pigs. When the small yard became quiet again, Leo Donkey carried a small backpack and took out the business certificate and health certificate that had been made but not yet issued and showed them to Alan. This is a very ordinary card which records the practitioner's information, name, tribe, height, and weight, and then affixes a photo and then molds it. Health certificates are similar to this, requiring photos and recorded information. The only difference is that the practice certificate is valid for half a year, while the health certificate is one time. Every time you receive a customer, you must be inspected and certified. No certificate. You can't do anything without a certificate. What you have prepared is quite formal. Spencer cocked his head and was inspired by what the old donkey showed Alan. The old donkey smiled when he heard what he said. The cost of this thing is infinitely close to zero, but the cost of the license here is £10. Even for a one-time health certificate, the production fee is as high as £5. No money. If you don't have money to take out a loan, how can you make money by working without some initial investment? I'm not in a hurry to eat. How are you doing at the bank now? Although the guests haven't arrived yet, Alan has already received the first rebate from the bank. The Ministry of Noble Affairs. Why would they help contact business here? Just because of the pounds Alan gave hurt the call lies in the interests of the bank. Alan didn't know exactly how they operated. In Banjul, they opened a small bank called the Gambia Development Bank. His full-time business is to contact the old donkey here to train these black people and provide them with loans. As long as you take out a loan once, it will be difficult to close it later. If you want to take on more customers, you should dress better, right? Which rich woman would like to wear dirty clothes? But what should I do if I don't have money to buy beautiful clothes? Loan. Leo Donkey took the information and explained it to Alan one by one. There are beauty loans, medical loans, and all kinds of loans with clever names and the industries these loans correspond to. It was the people from the Department of Noble Affairs who were in charge. They followed Alan to get a share of the pie, selling some common domestic goods and selling them to these black people at high prices. When black people have money, they can buy more goods, buy more additional goods, dress up to look better, and make more money. Everyone complements each other. Each loan is inconspicuous when taken out on its own, and the amount does not seem to be particularly large. As long as you work hard to receive customers and make a few orders, you can repay the money. But if you borrow more, it will add up to a large amount. The entire Gambia now is not a big fat sheep, but a small piece of fat meat. Higher level groups look down upon such a size of fat meat, but for Alan and his group, this piece of meat is just the right size, waiting for him to finally slaughter it. I remember there was a person named Abito who had the largest loan, and the total repayment period seemed to be until 2045. The old donkey smiled with a mocking look on his face, as if telling a joke, and talked about a very enterprising black man. This person's repayment period was very long. He might feel that the repayment pressure would be less. Don't they care about interest? What if they don't pay back the money by then? Spencer felt that the loan repayment period of several decades was like a fantasy. With such a long time span, no matter how small the interest was, it would add up to a large sum. What's more, with the quality of these people, they would not deadbeat interest. They don't care about interest at all. As long as the repayment time is extended, the interest will seem inconspicuous. As for repayment, the relationship behind the Gambia Development Bank is the Bank of England. Alan patted the confused Spencer and said, when you have financial transactions with these people in the future, you can also go to this bank. Don't worry, it's absolutely safe. It Must be safe. When Spencer heard the name of the Bank of England, he already understood how the process worked. No wonder Alan acted so unscrupulously. He feels confident now. Bank of England. This is a bank that doesn't do any business for ordinary people, and it doesn't seem to be particularly famous compared to the likes of HSBC. The Bank of England sounds like a country bank somewhere. They don't have much business. The entire bank has a board of directors system, and the president is appointed by a direct edict from the King of England. Their main business is the simple little thing of issuing pounds. I usually do some odd jobs, developing some financial projects for nobles. Those in London may not know the details of these things happening in the Gambia. At most, they know that there is a small financial project with a good return rate in the Gambia, and they promote these projects to those low-key nobles with spare money. And the Gambia, this is where the funding channels for development banks come in. Who dares to default on such a big crocodile? Those of you who are stubborn can try it. After resting in Banjul for 3 days and taking a boat, the crew who had been filming all the way arrived in Banjul. Alan held a small welcome banquet in the hotel, and these employees shot 2 versions of AB on the ship along the way. As a boss, he had to show off to some extent. After shooting a few scenes of getting off the boat and picking ducks, you take these people and play here for a few days, then go back to Wales to visit again and have fun for a few days. I'll ask the editor to work overtime and see, are there any shots that need to be reshot? Sifis sat next to Alan and nodded frequently after hearing Alan's explanation. This is what he should do. Communication is not convenient these days, and we are in a place where actors do not gather after a movie is shot. There will inevitably be some gaps. This requires the cast and crew not to leave in a hurry after filming, but to wait a few more days to cooperate with the crew's work. Master, I told them in advance on the ship. Very good. Alan looked at the other side of him, a middle-aged man with pigtails and a slightly wretched appearance. Sir, we can just share some lenses. It's very simple for us to shoot here. This is the director of version B. He is usually very low-key on the set. Even the actors in group A don't know what he does. Okay, you guys eat slowly. I'll leave first. With Alan present, they felt uncomfortable eating, and Alan himself felt a little awkward. As soon as he stood up, all the staff present stood up in a hurry. Only after seeing Alan out of the restaurant door did the atmosphere become lively again. In the hotel suite, Meryl had finished taking a shower, lying on her side on the bed, leaning her head on her left hand, and looking at Alan, who had just entered the door, and asked, "Why haven't you seen Mr. Spencer today?" Haha. He has eaten too much black pearls in the past 2 days, and is feeling a little uncomfortable. He is resting up there, thinking of Spencer. Alan also secretly admired him. This guy had a bigger heart than him, and dared to play with anything. Anyway, those black pearls had been tested, and they were fine. Thinking of the entanglement of one white and one black, Alan had a toothache. The American product is interesting. Not only does it have many skills, but it is also fully automatic, saving worry and effort. Come on, I haven't seen you for a few days. Let me see if your skills are rusty. Chapter 61 finished. Meryl looked at Alan, who was taking off his clothes and walking towards her. It feels slightly magical. She just took a role and came to Wales. Then I met the honorary. Theoretically speaking, the relationship between the two is considered close now, but Meryl feels that this may not be the case in His Excellency's heart. As soon as she arrived in Gambia today, Alan's bodyguards also knew her, but before she entered this room, she had to be searched by the bodyguards with instruments, and even her bag had to be searched. But it would be wrong to say that Alan only thinks with his lower body like those producers or directors in Hollywood. He is very hardworking and can put down everything when working. After work, his attitude towards her is quite peaceful. Although Meryl didn't know that Alan still owed huge foreign debts, she felt that Alan was a good person now. For people who have a very clear distinction between work and life, maybe this is the lifestyle of nobles like them. Thinking about all this, Alan grabbed her ankle with his hand, lifted it up hard, and pressed the whole leg to his chest. He assumed a strange posture. The shots that need to be shot throughout the Gambia are extremely simple. The original shooting plan was to reduce the number of shooting scenes here as much as possible. In just 2 days, all the shots were shot before leaving. Alan wanted to take Spencer back with him, but this uncle of the country was recently obsessed with black pearls and couldn't help himself. I had no choice but to take the film and Meryl back to Carmarthen first. Master, you've had a hard time on the road. Did you enjoy your trip to the Gambia this time? When Huth saw Alan, he glanced at the radiant Meryl beside him and made a little joke. It's not bad. The living conditions there are too bad. Lowering his head and sitting in the car, Huth sat in the passenger seat and waited for the car to start before he began to report the situation. Zeus has made an appointment to visit you tomorrow. In addition, Representative Luca of the Regional Council wants to visit you. Luca. When Alan heard the name, he frowned and thought for a moment. It seemed that he had never heard of the name before. Yes, young master. He used to be from Fox. Now he may have gotten the news and can't sit still. He wants to visit you. Huth sat sideways and glanced at Meryl, another passenger in the backseat. Logically speaking, she shouldn't be allowed to hear such words, but now that it was so vague, she couldn't understand it. Oh, just leave it alone and ignore him. I don't care about what's going on here, and I don't want to get involved. Such a little loser is like a bereaved dog without its owner. Whoever loves it will want it. Alan is thinking about who's now. This guy's really bad at doing things. It took several months before he came to him. The security department seems to have fallen and is no longer active and making money with such efficiency. When will our country be prosperous and powerful? Okay, got it. In his notebook, Huth crossed out all the matters related to Congressman Luca and began to report on other matters in the study room. After taking a shower, Alan was wearing a bathrobe and looking at the financial statements on the desk. These were all the items that needed to be paid in the early stage of this production, and one of them was the salary of the employees. Actors are also considered employees, and their salaries are included in this. As we all know, actors' remuneration is very heavily taxed. In some areas, it can be as high as more than half point. Even if part of it can be avoided through reasonable tax avoidance, the remaining amount will not be too much in the end. If it can be 60 to 70%, it is considered good point. But Alan's operation is relatively simple and crude. Nobility has the benefits of nobility. All crew members, regardless of type or profession, receive a base salary of £10 with no other subsidies. Even actors are paid this amount with such a low salary in this era. Under normal circumstances, more than this amount would be sent to beg for food. But this is only on the surface. It is to facilitate their tax payment, so they can't not pay a penny, right? So what should the British tax department do? Everyone must save face for each other. Alan gave the rest of the reward through rewards. When a nobleman gives a reward or tip to his employees, he can't collect taxes, right? As a dignified British Earl, it is reasonable to give a slightly larger reward, right? In this way, the large sum of money that Rex obtained from squeezing the Koreans will have a place to go. It is all in cash and does not have to pay taxes. Who doesn't like it? His method of operation not only saves himself money, but also allows actors to receive after-tax remuneration that is far higher than the market price by only giving pre-tax rewards that are lower than the market price, which is beneficial to both parties. It can also further reduce the production cost of a movie. Sign this financial statement in the name of Clear Award and stamp it with your private seal. All the pre-production expenses of this crew are considered to be a lump sum. In post-production, the editor was already working overtime, and Alan picked up another plan, which gave him a headache. In this era, it is the first time that he has organized the entire crew and project by himself, and he cannot take care of many aspects. There are some things that he has never experienced in his previous life, or he cannot cover everything. For example, advertising. Although his movie is secretly a large-scale promotional video for his industry, on the surface, there are no advertisements for other products in the entire movie. Alan didn't even think about it at the time, but now he feels a little regretful. Small money is money. If he accepts some small advertisements for drinks, hotels, cars, etc., he can probably earn over £100,000 in total. This is not small money. In addition, we are still busy with a series of post-production matters, such as dubbing, distribution, publicity, etc. Although there are people below to help him plan, their grassroots crew has not done this before and lacks systematic operating experience. Aha. He smacked his lips, picked up the teacup next to him, and took a sip of tea. After putting down the teacup, Alan pulled the bell and saw the maid push open the study door and said, "Call the physiotherapist to massage my head. I'm a little tired." "Okay, master." The physical therapist at home is usually responsible for giving Alan a massage to relax him. This is a serious massage, very professional point. When the physical therapist put his hands on Alan's temples and kneaded him gently, Alan, who was slightly soothed, slowly began to think clearly. Sharpening the knife will not make you a chopping wood. Alan believes in leaving professional matters to professionals. Now he is a little overwhelmed with many film and television distribution tasks, so he needs to find a professional to help him plan and check for gaps anyway. Such talents will be used in the future. Pull the bell and call Hooter. Go and investigate and see if there are any old guys in the Film and Television Association who are more utilitarian. I want someone with strong professional abilities, especially someone who specializes in post-production distribution and operation, or has a wide network of connections. For some film and television awards it would be better if it works. I need to hire a consultant for this. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62 Pharmaceutical Factory. Master, what kind of employment method are you talking about? Full-time or occasional consulting? Who? Ted did not agree in a hurry. His question was also very critical point for this kind of thing. Full-time and occasional consulting provide completely different treatment, and the people who are hired have different feelings. Alan looked at Huth, crossed his hands and explained, "You must have experience. It is best to have served in the Film Association. I need his experience to help me with things such as film distribution and promotion. If I do something like that in the future, I need to participate in some film and television award selections, and I can also use it. So if I want to find someone who is more utilitarian, I will give him what he wants." Limited by the speed at which we shoot movies, we are not usually very busy, but we must do our best. I see. In this way, there is no distinction between full-time and non-full-time. What the young master said was very straightforward. Hud nodded and continued to ask, "I need to check the information about such people. If one of them doesn't work, can I pick a few more? Individual. It's up to you. I don't need to have so many people. The most important thing right now is to bring them in and use them. I've already encountered a little trouble." "Okay, I see." Tap, 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 following the maid, who's held a large briefcase in his hand, and walked in the dimly lit passage. The footsteps of the two of them echoed in the corridor, which seemed a bit empty. This is the first time that Ooze has entered a place other than the first floor of this manor. The large wooden door has a light gap through the crack at the bottom. On the left side of the door frame, there is a small wall cage style object, which should be an old-fashioned small bell. In this way, if the master is working inside and pulls the bell if something happens, the servants waiting outside will know. The servant opened the door without knocking and took Ooze into the study. The first time I looked up, I saw Alan sitting at his desk writing something. Ooze was carrying his briefcase and was 3 steps away from Alan's desk. He didn't dare to make a sound and just waited for Alan quietly. Putting down his pen, Alan twisted his neck and saw who's standing in front of him. "Here, you come. Did you take long enough to do things?" "Oh, I'm sorry to disturb you." Who's was a little embarrassed when he saw Alan pointing to the chair in front of the desk. He carefully sat down with half of his buttocks, put the briefcase on his legs, and began to take things out of the bag. "Sir, some time ago, I went to the United States on a business trip, and some things were delayed. I just finished it a few days ago, and there are still some documents that need to be sorted out." While talking, Who's kept moving his hands, turning over several divided documents, and handing them to Alan's desk for his convenience. "These are stolen goods that we need to trouble you to help us identify." Alan Picked up the first copy of the thick pile of information that was most conspicuous. This is information about a candy factory. I wasn't very interested in this kind of thing, so I looked through the information below and found that there was also a wool farm, which was not large in scale. Seeing this, Alan understood that these were probably some of Viscount Fox's properties. There are no pillar industries in Wales as a whole. The specialty is breeding, wool, and textiles are all very common industries. In fact, for the nobles, or the whole of Great Britain, many common industries are nearby. Whatever is suitable for doing near the doorstep, properties are purchased based on the surrounding resources. Bigger businessmen may own some large multinational companies, but the properties of ordinary nobles are actually very regionalized. Great Britain is a society with fixed classes and little change in resources. Sometimes, you really can't do whatever you want. Just like in the novels Alan read before, the protagonist traveled through time, made some inventions, invested in building a factory, made a lot of money, and reached the pinnacle of life. Isn't that kind of behavior logical? Conform to, but the premise is that it must be. In some emerging countries and regions, the industry and commerce in such a place are underdeveloped, and they are said to be full of business opportunities. Only in such a place can we play like this, but the same approach would not work at all if it were applied to Great Britain or an old capitalist country like the West. Their place is a trap for all walks of life, and it has long been occupied. Every imaginable industry has already been worked on by people. If Tautai wants to innovate, it not only requires funds, space, and technology, but the biggest problem is facing suppression from peers. Only emerging industries will have a way to survive. As for industries with larger profits, there are more or less nobles behind these industries. This is not a place where you can just open a factory like China, where local officials will provide you with support and subsidies. This is the difference between location and general environment. This situation is not unique to Great Britain, but is common throughout the West. Great Britain is just more strict. Why have groups of people been forced to leave over the past hundreds of years? Can't they survive? Not at all. It's just that there is no way out at home, and the places and directions that can be developed are all occupied. We can only develop by going abroad and going to new places. Alan also had this consideration in mind when he originally chose the film and television industry as his entry point. Basically, no nobles were involved in this industry. In this way, the pressure he has to face will be much less. This is until I turned to the third piece of information. I saw that this was a small pharmaceutical factory, or a biochemical factory. Its main product is a cold medicine on the surface, but the information shows that behind the scenes, this factory also produces a medicine called fresh ginphenoxybenzamine tablets. The reason why these two potions are listed separately must have their uniqueness. Alan looked at the following introduction about these two potions, and then he suddenly remembered why Viscount Fox was mixed with Koreans. I saw words such as delay, resistance to premature ejaculation, etc. appearing in the introduction of these two medicines. Do you need to tell me what this thing is for? And Koreans, everyone understands that they need this thing in large quantities. The two sides have the same chemistry. No wonder they can hook up. Seeing Alan holding the third piece of information and studying it carefully, Hughes finally breathed a sigh of relief. Viscount Fox had a lot of property, but there were some things that he couldn't give directly to Alan, but had to share the profits in various aspects. So, he could only try his best to pick out the most valuable properties and give them to Alan within the scope of his responsibilities. How many pieces of information are there? After putting down the information about this small pharmaceutical factory, Alan looked at the remaining two pieces of information, a small tinplate processing factory and a fish processing factory. In comparison, this pharmaceutical factory has the highest gold content. Sir, we are not sure which factory has the problem. We need you to confirm it for us, but we can only confirm one place. Sorry to trouble you. Chapter 63 Patris Carmen. I can only confirm one place. Got it. Pick 1 out of 5. Now that Hughes has brought the information so thoughtfully, Alan will definitely choose the one with the greatest value. And even if he doesn't sell them outside, he can still use these things now. For example, sell them to Gambians. Don't be afraid. If you have no money, develop a medical loan immediately, without leaving a trace. He picked up the information about the pharmaceutical factory and put it away separately. Alan then picked up several other categories of information. To checkpoint these are not related to the industry, but some supply channels and the like. These things are of no use to him. As long as he doesn't choose several other factories in Fox, these channels will not be used. As for selling drugs, Alan also has channels of his own. Putting down the information and seeing that he had only acquired one factory in total, Alan turned his expectant eyes to Who's again. Sir, this is some stolen money as compensation for you. There is also some cash. I put it in the car. Alan took a document back handed over by Who's again and opened it. This thing that appeared in Alan's hand looked familiar to him. Isn't this the hidden money, stolen goods that he asked Huth to give to Capel's steward some time ago? Why did it go around in a circle and finally come back to you? Facing Alan's gaze, Who's blinked and shrugged. There was no way he could have brought it all in cash, but someone had told him in advance that he had to give these notes to Alan, so he had no choice but to do it. Okay. Thank you for your hard work. Please hand over the remaining things. Thinking back to Who's mentioning his business trip to the United States just now, and then thinking back to the news that Charles had mentioned to him at the Christmas dinner that Fox was cold, and combined with the things he finally returned to his hands, Alan had roughly understood this. There's meaning in it. Charles doesn't want Alan's money, nor the hush money. How could someone as arrogant as him take money from a loyal minister? It's just that these notes needed to be investigated and finally returned to Alan's hands in this way, with a little more cash. After driving Who's away, Alan rang the bell, looked at the maid who opened the door and asked, "Is Meryl still doing beauty treatments?" "Yes. Master, go. Call her and ask her to change into something more exciting. Just tell her that I'm a little irritable now and ask her to come over quickly." This way of Charles made Alan blush a little. He didn't know if Charles was deliberately criticizing him, but the way the hush money remained intact, went around in a circle, and came back again, it made people feel like he was being treated as a little kid. The child feels that he is very rare for this pound. What if Charles gave it all? Is this necessary? Alan was very unhappy and needed to relieve his anger. Beaconsfield, Buckinghamshire. It's still an hour's drive from London, and the town is most famous for a school built with official approval. National Film and Television School of Great Britain. This academy has been in its 16th year since its establishment in 1971. Although it is a rising star in the British film and television industry. But the college itself is extremely strong. Whether it is hardware or software, it is among the best in the entire UK. Now it ranks among the top 15 film and television academies in the world all year round. The faculty of the college are all experts selected from the entire British film and television field to teach classes and hardware. They have their own movie studio and TV studio. In short, it's just 2 words: bold and arrogant. January 27, 3 p.m. In the parking lot of the National School of Film and Television, Patrice Carman walked calmly as usual, greeting every student who saw him, and nodded to him. Wearing a black suit, he looked a little serious, and his silver hair was combed clearly. Even after working all day, his hairstyle remained untidy. Approaching his car, Patrice took out his car keys in advance and suddenly found another car parked next to his car. Look at the car logo. It's a Bentley. This is my favorite luxury car, but I can't afford to buy it yet. When Patrice looked at the Bentley window slowly lowered. The driver on the right side of the car glanced at him and said with some confusion, "Patrice Carman, it's me." "Well, get in the car. Sir Hutt wants to ask you some questions." Patrice was a little confused. Anyone who was greeted like this in the parking lot would not get in the car stupidly. What if he was a bad guy? Although he is just a bad old man, there is nothing to be remembered for. Just when he was about to refuse, Patrice was suddenly startled again. He seemed to have heard a word just now. Jazz. Taking another 2 steps closer to the Bentley, Patrice saw a small inconspicuous logo on the B pillar between the 2 doors. This kind of thing is the family heraldry of a nobleman. It is not obvious, but as long as there is, this thing is most likely true. And this logo looked familiar to him. He must have seen it before. Patrice gently opened the back door, and the first thing he saw was an elegant looking middle-aged man sitting in the back seat. "I'm sorry for inviting you in this way. There are too many children nearby. Can you get in the car and have a chat?" Huth smiled at Patrice, who opened the car door and explained, My pleasure, Patrice imitated the etiquette shown on TV, touched her chest slightly and saluted, then carefully got into the car, closed the door, and took a slight look at the middle-aged man who was speaking. When his eyes fell on the left side of his chest, he saw that very familiar thing, the medal. Aristocrats are a rarer species than celebrities. For star chasers, knowing the celebrity's travel arrangements in advance, such as going to a concert, picking up at the airport, etc., can also give them a chance to get up close and personal with them. The nobles are basically very low-key, and ordinary civilians will not see a few of them throughout the year. Unless they are lucky, they can meet one or two lords, which is not easy. As for the bigger ones, you can only see it on TV. But now, what appeared in front of him was a genuine lord, and he came to see him. Patrice was slightly excited and looking forward to it. Mr. Patrice, have you ever heard of the Hill family? The Hill family, Patrice frowned slightly, sounding somewhat impressed. Although he is not an aristocrat, Patrice is very attracted to aristocrats. When he was young, he also played the role of an aristocratic son in some film and television works, and he has done some research on the general information of some aristocrats. Seeing that Patrice was a little confused, Huth reminded him again. My master's fiefdom is in Wales and Carmarthenshire. Patrice's eyes widened slightly, and he blurted out, Earl of Carmarthen, haha. It seems that you have researched in this area. Now there is an opportunity. I wonder if you are willing to work for His Excellency the Earl of Carmarthen. Huth was very satisfied with Patrice's reaction. Who would remember such things? If he doesn't yearn for it, how can he be so interested? Chapter 64 Test. I'm very willing to. This kind of opportunity is rare for Patrice. Even if there is no benefit, he is still willing, just asking for a chance to contact the other party. Hooter nodded with a smile, patted the passenger seat, and motioned for the driver to drive. Feeling the Bentley slowly starting up under him, Patrice also didn't care about his car, but looked at Huth calmly, waiting for the night's next conversation. It's a little different from Alan. Alan may be indifferent to some ordinary people, and he doesn't bother to pretend, but sometimes, such as some staff members on the set, Alan is still very kind to them. But that's not the case with Huth. He usually seems to be smiling at everyone, but this is just a professional fake smile. At home, if the maids make any small mistakes, they will receive extremely severe criticism from butler Hooter. If you are too kind, you will lose credibility. The knighthood medal that was issued just a few days ago has made Huth currently in a mentally unstable state. This has nothing to do with grade, knowledge, or cultivation. After struggling for half a lifetime and finally achieving a knighthood in middle age, this feeling is something that ordinary people cannot experience. Therefore, when facing Patrice, Huth naturally had some sense of superiority. He first asked Patrice if he was willing to serve His Excellency the Count, and for what purpose. It won't be too late to tell him if you want to after he finished speaking. Now looking at Patrice's desire to make progress, Huth motioned to the driver to drive first, talking as he walked. Along the way, Huth first introduced himself, as if chatting with a friend, and then had a brief exchange with Patrice about some professional knowledge about the film industry that he had gained in the past few days. Since the young master has given him a task, he must complete it well. It doesn't matter if he doesn't understand, just consult someone who knows. This Patrice Carman is one of Huth's carefully selected targets. First, this person's past resume is very good, and his ancestors have never had any unclean people, criminals, or people who have done bad things in recent generations. Secondly, Patrice himself has a fair-looking appearance, and is not the kind of person who is crooked and cracked. The person who works as an advisor to the Earl does not require him to be good looking. At the very least, he must have a good temperament and an average appearance. These are the most basic requirements. Finally, we came to the professional field. Patrice Carman worked as an actor when she was young. Although she never became very popular, she can be considered a member of the butterboy type. Later, I did not continue to develop in depth on the road of deduction, but turned to the study and further study of theoretical knowledge. He studied in professional film schools in France and the United States, and later had guest teaching experience in film and television schools in Italy and Germany. In the past few years, He often served as a judge in awards such as the British Academy Film Awards and the French Kaiser Awards. Such a resume can be said to be very beautiful. It is because of this resume that he was recruited to serve as a teacher at the National Film and Television Academy. For such a person, even if he has no experience in film post-release and the like, he will definitely do it. Recently, you want to make some moves in the film field and need a consultant. I have also done some research on your ability, but the true level has yet to be verified. Now I will give you a small test. I am always waiting for your orders. Looking at Patrice, who was impatient, Hoot smiled and said, "Don't worry, Patrice, you can go home and tidy up first, say hello to your family, and just report to the manor within 3 days. This is my business card." Patrice took the business card from Huth with both hands. What, 3 days? He didn't want to wait any longer. 3 days is 72 hours. How many people will Hoot meet during this period? He didn't know, but what if someone took this opportunity away? This is an opportunity to have close contact with a count, and it is also a consultant position. Sir Huth, I don't think I need to wait that long. I can go now. Haha. Mr. Patrice's enthusiasm is really touching. Well, we don't have much time left. You might as well go back and tell your wife first. I will wait for you here. Huth looked at Patrice and pointed out the car window. Patrice was stunned and turned to look out the car window, only to realize that before he knew it, the car had stopped at the gate of his house. In the Western world, everyone takes the protection of privacy very seriously. But the other party just saw him today. Not only was he brought to his door very naturally, but he also knew accurately that his wife was at home now. Think about it. What does this mean? This is strength. How can ordinary people have such means? Okay. Sir, please wait a moment. I'll come back and tell you. Patrice gently stroked his chest and saluted before opening the car door and getting out of the car. In the dark screening room, Huth personally accompanied Patrice. The two of them had been sitting there for almost 3 hours. At this time, the film on the screen was coming to an end. This is a rough cut of the video in a hurry. How thick? There is not even dubbing. It is all live original sound, and the entire film reaches an exaggerated length of more than 180 minutes. It looks like all the movie footage was put together and played in a hurry. Until the lights in the screening room came back on. Huth looked at Patrice expectantly and asked, "Tell me about your evaluation of this rough cut. Does this film have room to work?" Thinking that his test was coming, Patrice's face was very solemn. He did not rush to answer Hoot's question, but closed his eyes and thought about it again. As a film and television school teacher who has also been a professional judge before, the evaluation should not be based on the first impression, but should first silently review the plot in the mind, and then sort it out again to see if there are any omissions. In my opinion, this film is simply ignorant, stinky and long. The overall structure is also very problematic. As we all know, a movie, whether it is a commercial movie or a literary movie, has something in common in the core structure of the story. But I didn't see much of it in this film. The overall narrative style is too bland, and the footage was too crude. Hoot nodded while listening. Although he didn't know much about movies, he had gained some professional knowledge in the past few days. The young master had never learned this knowledge before, of which he was very sure. In this film, as Patrice said, is very straightforward, with a flat narrative without any ups and downs. To put it bluntly, the content of the story is that a widowed woman saw an advertisement in the newspaper, bought a boat ticket, rushed on the road, arrived at the destination, picked the bad duck, went to the hotel, acted pretentiously, and finally achieved her goal. Although the young master also said it in the end, he made a certain emotional sublimation at the end of the film. But Hoot really didn't see where he was sublimated. Does climax encounter sublimation? Isn't this what a black duck should do? Forgive him for being old and not understanding what young people think. Chapter 65. I blushed. The heroine's outfit and the special effects make-up on her face are too obvious and look very vulgar. Patrice curled her lips. As for the person played by Meryl, in Britain, every person who sees her image will think of who she is alluding to. Although the person he was alluding to seemed to have a little sense of humor, Patrice still thought it was vulgar. Just look for a black duck. Is there not even a single missing point in the entire film? Is film expensive? Reluctant to shoot? Do you understand what art is? There are so many details, I simply don't know where to start. In short, this is a piece of rubbish. If your lordship wants to invest in this movie, my advice is not worth it. Whose director is this? Works. This is simply defrauding investors of their money. In order to show his professionalism in the field of film, Patrice demeaned this rough cut of the film to nothing. Point his eyes wide and slightly point letting you evaluate. Doesn't make you belittle. Point looking at Huth's expression. Patrice was very satisfied. Being able to shock the jazz in the professional field also made him feel very satisfied. But Huth, who was still dazed just now, glanced behind Patrice and suddenly stood up. His face still a little unnatural. Before Patrice had time to think about it, he heard an extremely low voice coming from behind him. This voice sounded powerful, but the content of the voice made Patrice's hair stand on end and his skin crawled. I took this picture as a filmmaker. What are the most basic qualities? Thick-skinned. Be able to observe words and emotions. You need to be able to speak sweet words. Recognize the situation clearly. Patrice has all of these excellent qualities. He stood up slowly and turned his head, looking at the tall young man who was very close to him. Patrice didn't care about his appearance now. This guy's face looked very unfriendly. And look at butler Huth, who had always been calm next to him, but now he just stood silently and didn't make a sound. It's easy to guess the identity of the person coming. The person who can make Sir Huthra act like this in this castle or manor must be the Earl of Carmarthen. But aren't nobles all old guys? Why is this person so young today? Gripping his thumbs on his index fingers, Patrice forced himself to calm down. Facing Alan's somewhat cold gaze, he calmly stroked his chest and saluted. Your Excellency, the Earl of Carmarthen, can I see you? What an honor. I didn't expect you to come to the screening room despite your busy schedule. The evaluation I just mentioned above all has a premise. That is, it is for ordinary viewers who have little appreciation ability, limited by certain knowledge levels and insights. It is not easy for them to have such an understanding. But for professional film critics, although this film is still a rough cut, the art contained in it, the level and artistic value have reached the point where they cannot be hidden. Alan looked at the boastful Patrice in front of him, and his expression improved slightly. But when it comes to artistic level, does he have a shitty artistic level? Tell me, what kind of artistic level can a plain version of a movie about a female prostitute have? Tell me specifically, where is the artistic level reflected? Well, Patrice was sweating on his forehead and thinking quickly in his mind. There was not much time left for him now. Ahem. Your Excellency, you know that I studied in France before, and the French once gave the Americans a Statue of Liberty. I think the artistic level of your film is not lower than the Statue of Liberty in terms of subject matter alone. This is a kind of resistance against female oppression. It is the pursuit of freedom and the right to wait a minute. This is a domestic film, not a French one. Alan interrupted Patrice, a British film. Talking about freedom is a matter for France and the Americans, and has nothing to do with the British. If you talk about freedom in the UK, do you want to imitate the French and rebel by beheading the king? Well, when Patrice saw that he couldn't do it, and this gentleman didn't seem to accept this trick, he quickly used all his strength to say something useful, or change the subject. Ahem. Our country, from the Queen to the Prime Minister, are all held by women. Your Excellency, you are also bathing in the glory of the Queen. You must have been inspired by this to shoot this movie with a female theme. However, because it is a rough cut, many details still need to be improved. I have just watched it once, and there are still some small details that I haven't figured out. If you don't mind it, I'm very willing to assist you in making some subtle improvements to this film. Make it even better. Alan tilted his head and looked at Patrice in front of him. His white hair meant that he was not too young. But as for how he behaves, he is pretty good and very smart. How old are you? Your Excellency, I was born in 1930, and I'm 57 years old this year. Very. But the rest of your life belongs to me. Patrice was stunned, unable to realize what Alan meant. Ute, who was standing next to him, gently kicked the kneecap of the old man in front of him with his toes after Huth's reminder. Patrice was so happy that she knelt down in front of Alan, learned some etiquette from American movies, and prepared to grab Alan's shoes and kiss them. Seeing Patrice's embarrassing performance, Ute didn't care about being rude. He squatted down and pulled his shoulders to stop his further movements. He quickly pulled Patrice up and said, "Just kneel down, kiss. Boots are made by slaves and savages." Patrice's old face turned red, and he secretly resented that the Yankees had mistaken me. He used to see so-and-so in American movies kneeling on the ground and kissing the boots of nobles as a gesture of loyalty. Today he finally thought that he could use it, but he almost felt embarrassed. Alan looked at this little old man with a somewhat serious face. His face was red, which was quite interesting. "Work hard. Money, honor, and title will all be indispensable to you in the future, Ute. You should teach him morals." After saying that, Alan didn't want to stay here any longer. He just heard that Ute had brought someone back, so he came over just out of curiosity. Who knew that, as soon as he entered the door, he heard this guy criticizing his movie. He doesn't know what it is like. This is just a large-scale bio show and promotional video, and the audience is quite special. Ute and the two waited for Alan to leave before taking their seats again. This time, Huth's attitude toward Patrice seemed more sincere. "Patrice, I will take you to go through some procedures in a while, and I will also allocate you an office and a restroom in the manor. For you, you can live in the manor or go home, as long as you sign up in advance. Just be prepared." Ute tapped his index finger on the armrest of the sofa, thought for a while and then said, "As for your family, do you have any difficulties? For example, you can talk about your children's work problems and I can help you arrange it." Chapter 66. Is it still too late to apply? Patrice was a little embarrassed. He could even arrange his family's work, so he just followed the L, and now he asked Butler Hud to do these things. No, sir, just help me arrange a place to live. Do I need to resign from my school? Although he had a certain understanding of the nobility, Patrice found that some of his previous perceptions of the nobility seemed to be a little biased. Now he was not sure about it, so he could only ask the professionals in front of him. "No. Remember, you have your own things to do, so just do it. The young master will only call you when he needs care. You can usually go back to the manor or your own home, but you need to report every week. Prepare." In addition, Huth made a gesture to signal Patrice to follow him, and took out a black card from the wallet in his arms, and handed it to Patrice. "You take this card. This is not a bank card. It has my information and the logo of the Hill family on it. If you encounter trouble outside in the future, or there is a problem you can't solve, just show this card and report it to you. Just the name and position are enough, and they can be used throughout the Commonwealth." Patrice took the card in a daze. The black card was covered with strange golden patterns. It looked extremely delicate, a bit like a bank's magnetic card. But as Butler Ute said, this was not a bank card. It was a card. On the front is an overall topographic map of Carmarthenshire with a huge crest of the Hill family in the middle, very domineering. The row of letters below roughly means exemption card. Simple and crude. On the back of the card was printed Hud's information in detail. His position was housekeeper to the Earl of Carmarthen of the Hill family, and there was also a landline phone number anyone who holds this card within the entire Commonwealth. As long as something happens, even if someone kills someone, the police only have the right to inquire, not to deal with it, and they must contact Ute as soon as they see this card. Ministry of Stewardship and Nobility. It's a bit like beating a dog, depends on the owner's intention. Patrice, who saw this kind of thing for the first time, took the card and looked at it repeatedly. This was just a card issued by the butler, and it had such a function. What if it was Butler Ute himself? Not only is he a butler, he is also a knight. What kind of cards will he use? Even the count. This was a bit beyond his cognition, and could not be imagined at all. But to sum up everything, this is the power of the nobles. They seem to be very low-key, and cannot participate in some modern government affairs. But can ordinary people imagine that they receive preferential treatment everywhere? They can't even see it. I visited my office and restroom and had dinner in the cafeteria. Patrice couldn't wait to see Alan again. He wanted to quickly show off his abilities. I followed the maid all the way to the physiotherapy room on the second floor and opened the door. There was a piano placed at the entrance and a tape recorder was placed on the piano. Soothing music was playing on the tape recorder. Further inside, on a massage table, Alan was lying face down on the bed, and a physical therapist was massaging his back. Master, Alan slowly raised his head. Today's massage was a little too strong, making him grin. When he saw Patrice's cautious call, he pointed to the sofa closest to him and motioned for him to sit down. Press my spine gently. Just this strength. What's wrong, Patrice? Alan adjusted his posture slightly and lay face sideways. Master, I just reviewed the movie again, and I have some immature suggestions that I need to report to you. Well, tell me. Patrice looked at Alan, then at the physical therapist, then gently moved the single sofa forward, closer to the massage table, then took out his notebook and asked tentatively, Master, what was your purpose in making this movie? For box office? Or hunt? Hasn't told you yet. No. Alan opened his eyes slightly and glanced at Patrice, who was sitting very close. For a certain degree of fame. Of course, making money is also the purpose, and there are some other small reasons. When Syphis comes over in the next few days, he will explain it to you in detail. In short, in our movie, you can't just treat it as a male. Instead of looking at it from a female perspective, we need to change our thinking and look at it from a female perspective. Understand? Seeing Alan closing his eyes again and enjoying the massage, Patrice gritted his teeth and said, Master, in fact, if you want to make money at the box office, our movie is not very hopeful. The best result is just profit, but the box office profit won't be too much. From a purely profit perspective, if you want to continue developing in this direction in the future, you might as well get into the subject matter of subsidized films. Alan, who had just closed his eyes, became a little more interested. I heard a new word for the first time today. Subsidy film. What kind of subsidy is this? Seeing the doubt in Alan's eyes, Patrice breathed a sigh of relief. As the Count's personal advisor, he wanted to quickly demonstrate his abilities. Master, the so-called subsidized films are the names within the Film and Television Association and the publicity department. Ordinary directors have no access to them, but with your status, not only can you have access to them, you can even apply for the largest subsidy. For example, all production expenses may be reimbursed, or even part of the box office may be covered. Oh, when Alan heard this, he was completely interested. He adjusted his posture slightly, put his left hand under his chest, raised his upper body, lay down slightly, looked at Patrice and asked, the production fee of millions of pounds can also be reimbursed? Yes. Anyone higher than this can do it. Patrice nodded firmly. Elaborate. Is it too late to apply for our movie? The production costs of version A and version B have now reached more than £1.1 million. It's not that Alan doesn't save money, but that he has made 2 movies. He can compress the cost to this extent, which is already considered a success. Not bad. In addition, the newly formed team has little experience, and some money has been spent in some places. Calculating it piecemeal, he now only has a few £100,000 of working capital on hand. Now it is the first time I heard that this thing can be reimbursed. So of course I'm interested. Well, I guess this movie won't be able to apply. Subsidy films are applied for before the project is approved, and they are never applied until the filming is completed. After hearing that the film could not be applied for, Alan seemed to have lost interest. He reached out to the plate in front of him, picked up a strawberry, and stuffed it into his mouth. He put down his left hand that was resting on his chest, and lay down again. Tell me about this kind of subsidy. How does it work? Although it was not possible to use it this time, which made Alan a little disappointed, but after understanding it, it would be fine to use it next time. Patrice frowned and thought for a moment before saying, let me give you an example. Master, do you know Zhangjiang? Where? Zhangjiang. From the Chinese side. Chapter 67 Subsidy film. I know this very well. Alan blinked. How could it be related to Zhangjiang? When it comes to subsidy films, I know it's there, but I've never been there, overseas. Colin is like this. Above Patris pointed upward, and continued somewhat vaguely, every year, a large amount of special funds are allocated to produce subsidized films. The content of this type of film is very complicated, but the purpose is very simple. Alan frowned. He didn't quite understand what Patris said, but he didn't want to ask in detail, so he motioned for Patris to continue. Master, have you seen the movies in Zhangjiang? Older movies? Yeah, I think I've seen it, but not much. What's wrong? A smile appeared on Patris's face and he whispered, actually, their old movies were all in a language they call Mandarin, but then they were asked to shoot in dialects. If they didn't obey, they would be shot at the box office. Attack them on the internet, or on the review process. What does this have to do with subsidies? Alan was a little confused. Seeing Alan's confusion, Patris continued, Master, this is the essence of subsidy films. They need to use movies as a publicity channel, to slowly change their culture. Or, his right hand formed a knife, and he made a chopping gesture. Patris raised his eyebrows and said, as long as the language barrier is slowly formed, it will not happen overnight. If we want to get closer, once a tradition is formed, it will be difficult to change it, just like the English spoken by Americans, and the English spoken by us, the pronunciation of many phrases is different. This is deliberately caused by the Americans. This is to create distance, and create artificial barriers. The above mentioned films that create differences in language or cultural concepts in various places are to safeguard our local rule and regional stability. Such films are considered subsidized films, and have no clear side. It's a title on the internet, but secretly, there are subsidies. Damn it. Alan's eyes widened slightly. This was the first time he heard about this thing. Although Patris's expression was a bit vague, he understood it. The general meaning was that in the old movies in Zhangjiang, the actors in the dialogues used Mandarin, but later they gradually changed to Cantonese. That's probably what it means. Although Cantonese is considered one of the dialects, the area where Cantonese is distributed is limited. Isn't this just deliberately creating regional barriers? The British are really a troublemaker. They do this everywhere, and they actually have subsidies secretly. It's so damn yin. Who is responsible for this in each region? The governor is in charge. Sometimes, the country will send commissioners to assist in management. Sure enough, having an old man in the family is like a treasure. As soon as the old guy Patris came here, he told Alan this kind of secret. How would an ordinary film and television producer know these things? Then, the direction you said we can take in the future is that you want me to go to Zhangjiang to make a movie? Make this so-called subsidized movie? No, master, you have misunderstood. I watched your film and found that the production team is very rough, but Hong Kong is full of film talents. If you need it, you can recruit a group of people there and then invest in a film and television project. If you manipulate the accounts with your status, you can definitely apply for a large amount of subsidy funds. I underestimated you, Patris. Alan didn't expect that the little old man in front of him had such a dark heart. According to his operating model, he went to Zhangjiang to recruit a few teams and invested about £100,000 to make a so-called subsidized film. Then he applied for a subsidy, falsely reported his accounts, and then applied for a subsidy of £200,000 to £300,000. It was so easy. In this way, if I invest in 5 or 6 movies in a year, I can save almost £1 million. This is no longer small money. Beauty, I'm afraid that Tesla will be limited by his identity and perspective. This can only be his personal idea. Alan definitely can't do this. First, emotionally, he can't do it. Although he has not been back since time travel, as time goes by, his appearance becomes more and more in line with the thoughts of the British aristocracy. But in his heart, he still had his own ideas. He used to want to wait until he had enough funds to go back and make some investments, build a factory or something, not to make more money, but to at least make some contributions. If he is asked to do this in secret now, he will not be able to overcome this hurdle in his heart. Second line, Patris's view, such a subsidy is not a small amount, but when it comes to Alan, he is a majestic hereditary earl. Does he need to use this kind of trick to make money? At that time, he would rather engage in a black duck plan. Although such a plan may not be on the table, at least it is a serious business, but there are too many people who have dealt with such things as cheating on subsidies. Once exposed, he will be very embarrassed. Okay, I understand this matter. Patris, please think about the problem in the future. Don't think about it from the previous perspective. Let's talk about the subsidy film later. But in Zhangjiang, we can recruit some professionalism after a while. Talent, that's right. Speaking of Zhangjiang, since that place is far away from Ding, and is a special place with a governor, if he wants to go there and recruit people, he can directly contact the Hong Kong governor. This is much more convenient than bringing people there directly. Who is the current governor of Hong Kong? Patris. Watched Alan change from interested to uninterested in the blink of an eye. He didn't understand what went wrong with his plan, and then heard what Alan said next. Master, there is no Hong Kong governor in Hong Kong. Now, there is no more governor? Where has the governor gone? At this moment, Alan even wondered if he was in 1987 now. The governor of Hong Kong died of illness last month. The Queen has not yet issued an edict for the new governor of Hong Kong, so it is currently vacant. Don't you know? Looking at Patris, who looked confused, combined with the time. Last month, he was filming during the day and personally coaching Meryl's acting skills at night. How could he have time to care about whether a corrupt Hong Kong governor was dead or not? Why, etc. Alan suddenly realized that it was a good thing that there was no Hong Kong governor now. Although I don't want to work on subsidy films, but he can work hard in other aspects. How can he make money without making money? The matter of the new Hong Kong governor will not be delayed for too long. With Great Britain's work efficiency, can it be delayed by 3 or 4 months? In other words, the new governor of Hong Kong will appear in April at the latest. When a new governor takes office in a region, he will definitely need to deal with many relationships and things. In other words, if the prestige is unstable, there will be many changes. But what if Alan personally went to give a platform to this unknown new governor? By then, his new movie will almost be released, and domestic public opinion will be somewhat critical. He can take the opportunity to go out and hide, just like going on a trip. A hereditary earl from the British past personally supported the Hong Kong governor. Even if he had no rights, as long as Alan appeared in Hong Kong, he could help the new Hong Kong governor solve many invisible troubles. After helping you so much, doesn't it make sense that I, Alan, can make a few pounds? By the way. Chapter 68 Letters. After thinking up a rough plan in a short time, Alan glanced at Patris and said, when Syphis comes over tomorrow, you will be his deputy and help him handle the post-production work of the film. If you have any questions, come to me. After the massage, Alan felt relaxed. He wanted to go back to the bedroom first, but after thinking about it, he unconsciously turned to the study point. Now that we have the preliminary plan, we have to consider some details. People like him don't just buy a plane ticket and leave wherever they want to go. As a hereditary earl, although Alan's reputation is still not obvious to the outside world, he must report in advance if he wants to go out, especially to outlying islands, such as the last time he went to Gambia. If you bring a bodyguard, especially if the bodyguard also carries a gun, you need to report to the security department in advance, and the relevant departments must issue various certificates. It's quite troublesome. Moreover, even if he goes to Hong Kong, before that, he must first meet or bump into the new Hong Kong governor. The two of them can communicate in private. He cannot just go there without asking. What if the new Hong Kong governor doesn't deal with him? Due to Deng's efficiency, there is no news about the new governor. Alan doesn't know who to meet now. If he wants to meet with such a procrastinating work efficiency, if it were him, he would have pulled out all the leaders of these relevant departments and chopped them off. If it were an era when noble lords were in power, Who among the people below would dare to be so procrastinating in doing things? Well, nobles, governors of Hong Kong. Alan paused, then quickened his pace, opened the door to the study, sat down at the desk, and began to rummage through the cabinets to find letter paper. A long time ago, governors in various places were actually positions exclusive to nobles, but isn't it a new era now? Traditional nobles cannot sit in the position of governor at all. But the traditional rules passed down require that the governor must be a noble. So what should we do in this situation? It's very simple. We, the British, have our own national conditions here. After selecting civilian elites and taking office, you can ask the Queen to bestow them with titles. A knight is also a title and a nobleman, and many governors now follow this model. When one is confirmed to take office, the other begins to apply for a title. After the governor receives the title, he can take office, which is known as one-stop service. And now this is what Alan is thinking about. He doesn't know who will be the new Hong Kong governor, but he can ask. All knighthoods must be approved by the Queen. Alan dare not ask the Queen directly, but he can ask Charles. A batch of knighthoods at the beginning of the year have been issued. Just ask who has recently applied for a knighthood, and you can roughly determine who is the new governor of Hong Kong. It's just this way of asking. The phone call was too direct. He couldn't be allowed to call Charles directly and said, "Your Highness, can you help me ask your mother who is going to be knighted recently?" If Alan dared to ask this directly, I believe Charles would drag his 40-meter long machete and come to Carmarthen to chop him down. High-end snooping methods often adopt the simplest methods. Alan is going to write a letter. Dear Your Highness, it has been more than a month since the last Christmas Eve party. I haven't seen you for so long, and I miss you so much. How is your health lately? The weather has turned warm in Wales, and the wildflowers all over the mountains and fields are very beautiful. Ute personally hunted hares for me a few days ago, but I don't like eating rabbits. Your Highness, can I hunt some rabbits and pheasants for you personally? Can you eat this kind of game in London? After writing this, Alan stopped writing and read the content. Although it was a bit disgusting, others wanted to write to Charles in this tone, and Charles didn't want it. After picking up the pen and adding greetings to the Princess and William, Alan rambled on and on, finally getting to the point. Your Highness, I have been busy with the film work recently. I want to go out for a walk and relax. I heard that Zhangjiang in the east is very good. I want to go there in a while. Let me report it to you and ask Your Highness if there is anything you need. When I come back, I will bring it back to you. In addition, it's the first time I'm so far away from home, and I don't know if the governor of Zhangjiang is easy to get along with. Will my going there cause trouble to his reception work? Your loyal bodyguard, Alan Hill. After checking for typos again, Alan finally picked up his private seal, stamped it at the end of the letter, and rang the bell to notify the servant outside to call Ute. Master, are you still working at this late hour? Ah, you're here. So, this is a letter I wrote to His Highness. You can help me seal it and send it over tomorrow. Alan handed the letter directly to Huth. After receiving the letter, Ute read it subconsciously. The format was not a big problem, but as his gaze moved downwards, Ute's eyes widened instantly. When did I personally hunt the hare for the young master? I do not know how. Besides, the mighty Earl of Carmarthen is so poor that he needs to rely on his butler to hunt for his own livelihood. This is too tragically written. Just look at Alan's letter. The image of a loyal minister who is located in a remote area and guards the border for the monarch has emerged on the page. In this case, the minister still cared about the monarch and asked his monarch in the letter whether he could eat pheasants and hares in London. What can't you eat in London? I have seen people cry miserably, but the way my young master cries miserably is a bit unique. Isn't this an exaggeration? After Ute read the letter, he looked at Alan again and said, Master, just send it. You don't have to worry about anything else. Okay, I'm going back. Alan waved his hand with a tone that left no room for doubt. If you don't cry miserably when writing a letter to your boss, why should you show off how good your life is? Isn't it just a little bit exaggerated? It's nothing like that. The big lights in the bedroom were not turned on, but only a few small spotlights were turned on. Under this kind of light, the bedroom seems a little dim. Meryl was lying on the bed wearing silk pajamas. Viewed from behind, the curve of her buttocks was well highlighted. She was wearing black stockings on her crossed legs, and the black stockings were paired with purple pajamas. Alan looked at what Meryl was flipping through and curiously tilted his head to look at the photo album like thing in her hand. "What are you looking at?" "I kind of miss my daughter." Meryl pointed to the photo album and told Ellen about her family. Looking at the family photo in the photo, "I didn't know much about it before, and Ellen didn't ask about it. I never expected that Meryl actually has 3 children." Looking at the photo, Meryl's somewhat balding husband is smiling innocently, holding his son in his left hand and his daughter in his right hand. He turned his eyes and glanced at Meryl lying on the bed. Alan sniffed. Everyone called KO a thief, and everyone wanted to be a KO thief. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69, Bullying Goes Too Far. The rough cut of the film has recently been released, and there are no scenes that need reshoots. Alan is not planning to keep Meryl around any longer before leaving. Of course I felt a little bit reluctant to leave. As I look at the photos now, I think about Meryl's family. Her husband is taking care of the children in the United States, and Alan is helping him take care of his wife in Wales. When he thought about the bicycle that others were too careful to even ride hard, he could stand up and pedal as he pleased. With this unique experience, Alan was particularly excited tonight, February 2nd, 1987. With a sound of fuck. Hiss. Alan didn't sleep until he woke up naturally, but was awakened by a nightmare. In the dream, he felt a snake staring at him, swaying from side to side, and first made a feint shot at him, but Alan cleverly dodged it. But while he was retreating, the snake was chasing after him. Just as he was about to look back, he saw the snake jumping up and biting him. But the expected pain from the snake bite did not come with it. Rather it made him feel a little urgent to urinate. He pushed back his right hand in a daze, preparing to sit up and half lean on the head of the bed. Alan moved and looked down slightly, only to find Meryl. He looked at Alan with a smile and said, "Are you satisfied?" "Not particularly satisfied, and even a little scared." Alan looked at Meryl speechlessly. He said that 30 is like a tiger and 40 is like a wolf. These ladies in their 30s are really like wolves and tigers. Before he left, he didn't know whether it was because he had unlocked a new scene setting a few days ago. Alan, who had nothing to do these days, spent most of his time in the bedroom, exchanging farewell feelings with Meryl. Then, "Please wake me up for a while. I'll read the newspaper first." Alan straightened his back and gestured, then picked up the newspapers that had been stacked beside the bed for several days and pulled out the bottom one. There was a smaller picture under the front page, which showed a group of people dancing a lion, and the building behind it was in Chinese style. The introduction of the accompanying text is that the Chinese New Year is coming, and the Chinese in Chinatown are celebrating. Damn it, is it already the Spring Festival? A little confused, Alan looked at the date again. The Spring Festival has passed several days. A little annoyed, Alan kicked Meryl in the back with his heel. The wake-up call service was so-so, but the wake-up call effect was very good. Alan looked at the newspaper, and Meryl moved on her own. While moving, she asked tentatively, "Alan, you short of money recently?" Alan, who was about to turn the page, paused slightly with his hand, then turned to the next page, and casually replied, "Why do you care about this? Have you booked your flight back?" Working together on set during the day and in bed at night. The relationship between the two is just an ordinary pure colleague. Alan rarely talks to Meryl about his personal life, and as for family matters, he is even less likely to tell her. "I still have some savings over the years, so I can give them to you first." Alan lowered the newspaper slightly, and Meryl and Alan, who were blocked by the newspaper, looked at each other. Looking at the look in Alan's eyes, Meryl thought she had made him angry because she stopped moving and looked at Alan with doubtful eyes. "I invited you to film a movie, and then I slept with you again. You must at least feel a little humiliated." Looking at Meryl, who was doing her best in front of him, Alan was a little confused. Why did he pay her before leaving? Do you look down on me, or are you ready to have a relationship with me? Talking about feelings hurts your feelings. The atmosphere that the aristocratic master had just cultivated to oppress the women of the people was completely destroyed by Meryl's words during lunch. Alan asked his servants to quickly buy Meryl a ticket back to the United States. He just wants to experience Leo Ko's life. But he doesn't want to be Zeman King. This American bitch's brain circuit is a little dangerous, so it's best to send her away as soon as possible. Master, Alan motioned Huth to sit down and said, "Sir." Capel called and responded in the morning. "His Highness is planning to come hunting next week, so you can prepare the reception." Putting down his chopsticks, Alan asked in confusion, "Hunting?" In his letter to Charles, he just asked if he needed to send him some hares and pheasants to London, but he didn't expect that Charles would actually come to hunt in person. "I just cry miserably every day, brother. Are you taking it seriously?" "Let's this." Alan looked at Hute, nodded in Hute's helpless eyes and said, "Okay, let's get ready quickly. In addition, is His Highness the only one to come? Princess, Your Highness William, are all coming over?" "Sir Capel also asked me to send you a message on behalf of His Highness William. He asked you not to forget to give him the cow. It's simply too much." The corner of Alan's mouth twitched, and he cried miserably while writing letters. No one felt sorry for him. Instead, Charles brought his family to eat and drink from him. Even William actually wanted to blackmail him. "Send someone to buy a cow. Do you know what to buy? Buy a small one, and follow my arrangements then." "I understand, young master. I will make arrangements right away." "What about the others? Didn't His Highness say anything?" After reading the letter, Hute shook his head and said, "That's all Sir Capel said. Maybe His Highness wants to wait until we meet before talking." "Okay, I understand. Go ahead and get ready." The Prince of Wales sometimes doesn't even come to Wales once throughout the year, even though it was his domain. Charles hated Wales with all his heart. How much do you hate it? His favourite estate, Highgrove, was built on the English side of the border just a stone's throw from Wales. Such behaviour even made many Welsh people feel humiliated. As the vehicle bumped, Charles frowned slightly as he looked at the scenery outside the window. We didn't meet many cars along the way. The road conditions were it's hard to explain in one sentence. No wonder Alan always complains about the inconvenience of travelling from Carmarthen to London. In Charles's eyes, the whole of Wales was a wilderness, except for the dilapidated fortresses that could be seen everywhere. The rest were all endless hills, uninhabited for 10 miles. The entire area of Wales is only slightly larger than 1/10 of the total area of Guangxi province in China. In such a large place, there are only a few large cities with a population of nearly 1 million, and in the rest of the places, there are scattered populations of hundreds of thousands. These people are distributed in villages and small towns. Think about how empty it would be with so few people in such a large land. There are 4 national parks in Wales, which are a paradise for small animals. It is for this reason no one, Butler Capel, who was in the passenger seat, glanced at the passing road sign, turned sideways and whispered, "Your Highness, we have entered Carmarthenshire." "Well, go directly to Alan's place." Chapter 70 Hunting. Alan knew the specific day that Charles was coming. But I don't know which route to take when arriving at a more specific time. I was notified 20 minutes in advance for safety reasons. Standing at the gate of the manor, watching several box-type heavy-duty trucks approaching from a distance, Alan was a little confused. He glanced at Hute next to him and said, "Is this a transport horse?" It was originally a very simple hunting where these heavy trucks could be used. The only thing Alan could think of was to install horses. Should be listening to Hute's reply, Alan looked at these heavy trucks with some envy. Charles is still extravagant when compared with him. Shouldn't he cry poverty? In order to hunt for hundreds of miles, people take their own horses. Maybe the price of several of Charles' horses exceeds Alan's worth. Sniffing with envy, Alan ignored the heavy trucks that were being inspected by bodyguards and instead looked at the road at the gate of the manor. Several more medium-sized buses drove up in the distance, and sandwiched between these buses were 6 grey Land Rovers, an endless convoy of more than a dozen vehicles. This is the most streamlined configuration for Charles. to go hunting. Except for those who pull equipment, the rest of the passengers on those buses are all servants. Such a large team may be considered very frugal for Charles. How long have you been waiting? The second car in the Land Rover team stopped steadily in front of Alan, and the rear window lowered, revealing Charles' face. Your Highness is welcome to Carmarthen, who stroked his chest and saluted, and with a slightly higher volume, he reminded Alan, who was a little distracted. Haha, Your Highness, I came out and waited after I received the call. I didn't wait long. Alan opened the car door and welcomed Charles' arrival. As Charles got out of the car, Alan saw the Princess and William sitting in the third Land Rover following behind. As for Harry, he was probably too young and was not brought here at all. While the servants were unloading their horses, Charles took Alan to visit the manor. He'd been here before, but Alan couldn't remember the last time he'd been here. You want to go to Zhangjiang? Go there to relax, travel. I've never been there, and I'm a little curious. I want to recruit some film production talents there. Charles glanced at Alan and said, the last sentence is the key point, right? He thought that Alan was just playing around in the name of the movie. But it's not a big deal. Just play if you like. Which man doesn't like to play when he is young? We have negotiated a return date with them a few years ago. It is not easy to be the governor of Hong Kong this term. The remaining period should be generally smooth and the transition should be smooth. Do you understand, Your Highness? I'm not the one who caused trouble in the past. Alan struggled slightly and retorted. Why did it sound like he was afraid that he would cause trouble in the past? As for the smooth transition period, this is easy to understand, even though there are still 10 years left before the return. But in the eyes of some people, this 10 years is already a very short time. Many people who have property there are confused or panicked. A large number of people are relocating their industries. For some factories and industries, it is unrealistic to relocate them too far away, so they can only find nearby resettlement sites. This requires time to arrange, which is the so-called transition period. But this kind of thing has no impact on Alan at all. It is better to be stable and panic is better. A stable environment represents safety, and panic makes it easier for him to operate in it. Well, the new Hong Kong governor has not been confirmed yet. When it is confirmed in a few days, I will ask him to come to your place. As for your relationship, you will be my personal assistant from now on. The relationship will be with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the certificate will be approved. It will be delivered to you in a few days. Although Charles seemed a little harsh when they first met, he still agreed to Alan's request. Your Highness, please worry no matter how the outside world evaluates Charles, or whether there are many traditional nobles who criticize His Highness, at least the current Charles is still quite interesting to his own people. What are the criteria for a good boss? Not only did he agree to your request, but he also added an insurance policy for you. Linking Alan's relationship to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is insurance. If he does something extraordinary, it also has the double insurance of diplomats. That's enough. After visiting Alan's stable, Charles said with a look of disgust, I'll give you a horse to see what kind of stuff you have, and you rely on this for hunting. The only one who can use the famous horse is a riding horse for hunting, is the one in front of him. Anyway, Alan is reluctant to part with it, and he doesn't have that luxury when hunting in the wild and riding horses. The most important thing is that the leather is durable. Is appearance important? Riding a beautiful and famous horse, and having the prey delivered to your door. William, grab it, knock it down. Alan was holding a long rope in his hand, and at the other end of the rope was the head of a calf. Maverick stood there lazily and somewhat dazedly, not daring to move. The calf was fed well early in the morning, and was given some wine before leaving. Not to mention running away now. It was already considered strong if it could stand still. The Scottish Highland cow, which was no bigger than a dog, was knocked down by the excited William. Charles and Diana from a distance looked at the playful William and Ellen with smiles. Cousin, help me. It may be that the pain caused by William's fall woke up the calf. The calf, which was still dazed just now, twisted and resisted on the ground. Alan pulled the rope in his hand and just sat on the horse watching William train the cow. This calf was placed nearby by the servants of the family in advance. As soon as everyone arrived, Alan pretended to take William to catch a wild calf and asked the servants to scare the calf near them. Alan adjusted the horse's position to reveal William next to him. He straightened his back, looked at the angle, and motioned to the servant next to him to take a photo of him. He has to wait until William grows up to see these dark histories on the picnic mat while making tea. Alan glanced at Charles, who was staring in a daze in the distance with his peripheral vision. "Your Highness, are you enjoying yourself today?" Charles glanced at Alan and did not rush to reply. Instead, he changed the subject and said, "When I have the opportunity, I will go hunting in West Africa. There are no big game animals here, so it will not be satisfying." They were a group of people with bodyguards on off-road motorcycles patrolling the outside and bodyguards on horses looking for prey in the middle. In the middle are the Charles family and Ellen. With such a staffing arrangement, not to mention the prey, all the small animals on the road were scared away. Even the few remaining hares that were shot were brought in from outside by the bodyguards who worked hard. "How about I kill 2 Welshmen to entertain His Highness?" Alan, the princess who was accompanying William, was the first to scold Alan when she heard Alan's dangerous and rebellious remarks. Ha ha. Charles didn't take it seriously and waved to the cook who was roasting rabbit next to him to bring the roast up. Chapter 71 Super Large Real Estate Investment Project. After staying in Carmarthen for 2 days before Charles left, in addition to leaving behind a horse that he said was for Alan, he also left a large amount of food. Looking at the list handed over by Hooter, Alan and Hooter looked at each other. The ingredients listed on the list are worth tens of thousands of pounds. What Charles eats must not be bad. But Alan just felt bad. He really cried miserably in the letter, saying that Hooter shot rabbits for him to eat. But you can't just get me some ingredients, damn it. This kind of behavior that seems very considerate but makes people feel extremely uncomfortable is also in line with Charles's style of doing things. Master, this is the developed photo. I took a look at the photograph of the Earl of Carmarthen accompanying the Prince of Wales on hunting of him, and Charles Allen finally felt a lot more balanced now, and these few photos were enough. He pulled out a plan from the drawer and handed it to Huth. Change the contents of this plan a little, expand the scope 10 times, add these photos into it, and make a new plan for me. Okay, I see. In mid-March, the manor finally welcomed a new guest. Alan, who was busy with the latter part of the movie, finally got excited when he heard the visitor's name and asked Huth to invite him to the study. Welly Dewey, who was invited to Alan's study by the servant, took a look at the study. There isn't much of a scent of books, and the most displayed items on the display shelves are not books, but muskets and swords. Looking at these furnishings, one can imagine the preferences of the owner of this study room. Haha, are you the new governor of Hong Kong? Hearing the voice coming from behind, Welly Dewey quickly stood up and bowed slightly to salute. After saying hello, he looked at the person who had been personally given a message by the prince's butler, asking him to come and visit in person. Alan Hill, an old aristocrat who wants to travel to Hong Kong to relax, but is so arrogant that he needs to be visited by the new Hong Kong governor first. This first impression made Welly Dewey relax a little. It was not a very serious and rigid traditional aristocratic image, but very much like a playboy. Your Excellency, not yet. He will not take office until next month. Haha, it doesn't matter. You don't need to be so strict. Sit down. Hooter will serve you tea. He looked up and down at the little old Scottish man who called himself Welly Dewey. He has white hair and is slightly balding. Looks like. Alan suddenly discovered that this person looked a bit like Bush Sr. from certain angles. His eyes moved down and he looked at Welly Dewey's clothes. This material. It is estimated that the suit he is wearing cost no more than £1,000, or maybe even less with these understandings. Alan felt confident. The Welly Dewey in front of him is the same type of person as him. Everyone is poor and needs pounds. After being watched carefully by Alan for a long time, Welly Dewey felt a lot of pressure in his heart. When he didn't speak, Alan was still very oppressive. He didn't understand what Alan was going to do. But looking at the current situation, it is definitely not as simple as traveling and relaxing. Sure enough, Alan, who had been staring at him for a long time, nodded, smiled slightly, picked up what looked like a promotional material on the table, and handed it to him. Look. at this plan. This is the project I'm going to finance in Zhangjiang. Before receiving the plan, Wei Dui had already started to have a headache. He knew that none of these traditional nobles were easy to get along with. Their brain circuits are different from normal people. Zhangjiang is coming back. Everyone is busy transferring assets, but this guy actually wants to raise funds now. Are you going to cause trouble? Open the plan and take a first look. Wei Dui was stunned by the photo on the first page of the plan. The Earl of Carmarthen in front of him was carrying a gun and riding a very beautiful white horse. He was accompanying His Royal Highness the Crown Prince as the two galloped. Just from this photo, he could imagine what it represented. His Highness likes hunting, but the relationship between this kind of person who can follow him and carry a gun, incredible intimacy. Continuing to turn the page, what comes into view is a very domineering slogan, with the sea to the west, the Prince's Palace to the east, and the largest port in Wales to the south. It shows a style of a British aristocrat. What the hell is this? Wei Dui slowly turned over the plan. This is a very large real estate investment project. According to the plan, the location for its construction was chosen in Carmarthenshire, Wales. Its geographical location is surrounded by mountains and rivers, and has excellent feng shui. etc. Wei Dui suddenly realized, isn't this near where he is now? That's what's in the plan. To the west is the sea. It's still hundreds of kilometers away from the sea to the west. And to the east is the prince's residence. The prince's residence in the east should refer to His Highness's Highgrove Manor. Right. There is a small distance of 200 kilometers in between. Is this called adjacency, Your Excellency? This is your plan. How is it? Isn't it magnificent? Wei Dui swallowed. As a diplomat turned official, he could be considered someone who had seen strong winds and waves. But this was the first time he had seen someone telling lies like this with his eyes open. If he hadn't known that this damn place in Carmarthen was so desolate, even he would have been moved just by looking at the plan. Look at the plans in the plan, including hospitals, schools, polo fields, golf courses, and large villa areas in a forest ecological environment. The professional butler team allows you to experience the traditional lifestyle of British aristocrats. It is also adjacent to the prince's residence. TSK. Alan lit a cigarette for himself, pointed at Wei Dui and said, after you take office, I will use the identity of His Highness's personal assistant to help you solve some minor problems, and you need to help me plan this plan for businessmen or wealthy people who want to escape Hong Kong. As for the reward, I will transfer 10% of the total income to a special account and hand it over to your wife. You don't have to worry about the operations in between. Wei Dui silently turned to the last page of the plan. The project was divided into 6 phases with a total budget of £2 billion. The first phase had a budget of £200 million. Construction starts one phase after another in a ladder-like manner. The operation mode is a bit like raising funds. Investors can receive generous dividends after the project is completed. It looks extremely tempting and is a great place to move money right now. It's a precise harvest, Your Excellency. This plan. Wei Dui felt a little unsure. He always felt that this plan was a bit empty. Don't worry. Just think about it and tell me before you take office. The construction cycle of such large projects is relatively long. It may not be completed by the end of your term. What do you think? Wei Dui raised his eyebrows and finally discovered something fishy. The construction period is relatively long, Your Excellency. I will help you. Seeing that the new port understood his words and agreed decisively, Alan smiled happily. Haha, Wei Dui, we in Daying need talents like you. Chapter 72 Detailed Discussion. Wei Dui smiled shyly, and there was a gentle knock on the door behind him. Huth came in with the maid, personally served tea to Alan and Wei Dui from the dining car, and set out the refreshments. Thank you, sir. Wei Dui didn't dare to show off, so he quickly stood up to express his thanks. He had not yet been officially awarded a knighthood, but Ute was a real knight. Being served tea to him in person was a bit flattering to Wei Dui, who was born as a commoner. After the maid pushed the dining cart out, Ute took a notebook and sat on the other side of the desk. Sir, how should I support you? Now, that he has made up his mind to cooperate. Wendy Dewey is ready to ask Alan about his specific plans, which aspects require his help, and what he should do. Before taking office, you should first understand the specific situation under your administration, right? For example, the general distribution of assets of some wealthy people and the approximate amount of liquidity. I only need the latter. I see. That's easy. No, your enemy and your friend. This Wendy Dewey knows very well. Only after he knows how much liquid funds are lying on the bank accounts of the rich people in Zhangjiang can he choose his target better. Then, do you need me to reveal some information to a few acquaintances? No. No, Alan shook his finger and said, you don't need to do any other unnecessary actions for this matter. You will take office first. When you arrive in Zhangjiang, help me collect the information. Then you don't need to worry about the rest. Everything will wait until I arrive in Zhangjiang. Besides, even when you connect to me, you have to be a little low-key. Let them be curious, let them guess. Instead of you taking the initiative to tell them. Alan knew exactly what he was doing, and the group of people he was dealing with point people who can make money, and make a lot of money. Are they fools? There may be a very few fools who get rich overnight through bad luck, but most rich people develop step by step through their own hard work. Point every one of these people is either scheming, or ruthless and decisive. There will be no simple one. He's not trying to cheat. He's trying to trick you. Be a liar. This technical content is too high, and Alan is afraid that he will not be able to play it. But it is much simpler to trick people. Point most people won't cherish things they get for free, so he decided to play it real. Point sincerity is his biggest weight this time. Sir, you don't have to worry. I handled all the procedures for this project personally. Whether it's the principal's project approval and filing, or the county's project approval, or location planning, we all followed formal procedures. It is verifiable and reasonable and legal. Hute smiled and gave Wendy Dewey a reassurance. Wendy Dewey nodded, suddenly stunned, and then came to his senses. What formal procedures? These things may be a little safer in another place, but now that he is here, he still knows a little bit about the Earl of Carmarthen. Let's not talk about the distant ones. Let's just talk about the territory. This is his territory. He wants to go through the procedures in the Principality of Wales. Even if he wants to build a large toilet of 10,000 square meters, someone will help him get the approval. Although on the surface the Earl seems to have little power, he holds the biggest weapon against local officials, the power of surveillance and removal. Theoretically, if he doesn't like someone, he can not only report him, but even report him to London to remove him. Faced with such a situation, His Excellency the Earl needs to go through some normal procedures. Who dares not to do it for him? If you dare not do it for him, then just find another official who is willing to do it for His Excellency the Earl. Such procedures are basically equivalent to waste paper in Carmarthen and Wales. Isn't it up to him to do whatever formal procedures he wants to go through? Think again about those rich people in Hong Kong who don't understand this, except that His Excellency the Earl's heart is not sincere. Everything else on the surface is true. How to guard against this? Sir, are you going to Zhangjiang this time? Will you cooperate with me then? Wendy Dewey looked at Hute. Since it was Hute who executed the plan, he thought that he and Hute cooperated in this plan. There is someone else who will accompany the young master to Zhangjiang this time. You will know when the time comes. Take this. This is another thing that the young master needs you to do. Huth tore out a page from his notebook and handed it to Wendy Dewey. Looking at a few people written on the paper about the people needed in the film production process, Dewey raised his head and looked at Huth and then looked at Alan. If you have time, you can help me select talents in film production. You don't have to be restricted by position. As long as you feel they are talents, I will take them. Okay. Then, let's come here today. I look forward to meeting you in Zhangjiang. Wendy Dewey stood up, saluted again, and was ready to leave. He was extremely busy now. After all, he had to go there to maintain stability, and many things needed to be prepared in advance. As a studied or closed again, Alan picked up the plan on the table, took another look, and nodded with satisfaction. It's too slow to make money from the poor. He still has foreign debts, and when the old guy Patris mentioned the movie project, even Alan felt that it was a bit unsettling to make a lot of money from movies in a short period of Time point so point I can only take this road to Zhangjiang to make some extra money and build a new garden for myself point. If you want to make money from rich people. Don't they want a smooth transition? Don't they want asset transfer? So, as long as the money is gone, will things be stable? Transferring assets does not necessarily have to be transferred to a bank. If it is in other areas, it is also possible to transfer it to my Alan's personal account. We have to kill pigs anyway. Others can kill pigs, but I, Alan, can't. When Alan told Weidui about the plan just now, Weidui thought that Alan would slowly delay the progress of the project, or add other means to make money point. But Alan didn't even bother to do that point. He still cares about his reputation. Alan really wants to do this plan, and he will do it with absolute sincerity, as long as the funds are in his hands and in Carmarthen. This will no longer be the case. First step. This kind of large-scale real estate project always requires land acquisition, right? A plan is a plan, and its implementation depends on the person. If he randomly arranges for someone to go to the area that needs land acquisition, build a thatched house, and serve as an ale household, will this stop the project from proceeding? As the project drags on, things get more complicated. For example, land acquisition will definitely affect the local ecological environment. People in the environmental protection department stay in the office all day with nothing to do. Can they be taken out of the office? Now that the environmental protection people are gone, you can still come to the animal protection department. All kinds of unexpected things are added up. Does it cost money to open up the relationship between various departments? Is a fine required? If the money is exceeded, the overall project budget will have to be increased, right? Can people who have invested early watch their investment share being diluted? If you can't bear to see it, you have to invest more. If you can't bear to see it, you have to tolerate the reduction of your share. Chapter 73 title. After they continue to invest more, there will be more means waiting for them. Alan will let them see how difficult it is to complete a project in Britain. He could play whatever he wanted in the whole Carmarthen area. No matter who comes here. If it's a dragon, let me coil you up, or if it's a tiger, let me lie down on yours. As long as these fat pigs invest money and come to Carmarthen, they have to be cut by Alan at will. This is called making full use of one's own advantages and playing at home. Others still read The Art of War when doing business, but Alan doesn't read this. He reads Journey to the West. When the time comes, let these people see what it means to be difficult and how difficult it is to be different. The funding hole cannot be filled. In the end, the entire project can only be modified, such as reducing the scale of the project, changing the building layout and other places. As long as the time is extended for a few years, he can lose all the money through operations. The project ends up being scrapped, and then an agent is found to take it over at a low price. Then with this money, Alan can continue to build a small garden for himself, and just make slight modifications based on the unfinished building in front. He was very envious of Charles's manor, but apart from its historical heritage, his own manor was too poor in terms of living comfort. This time he wanted to kill two birds with one stone, not only to make money, but also to kill pigs and cut leeks, and finally build himself a new manor in the screening room. Patrice accompanied Alan to watch the final edited film. Because this movie is so simple. Not only is the plot simple, but the filming is also very simple, and even the editing doesn't require too much effort. There is no need to frequently cut shots or intersperse scenes. Just flatten them all the way. Movies like this are great news for post-production. The shooting only took a month, and the post-production process took just over a month. The total production time was less than 3 months, which is considered light speed for a movie production. Alan looked at the finished film and felt it was okay and achieved the effect he expected. Master, what is the name of this movie? Patrice waited expectantly for Alan to give the movie a title. He has been watching the film post-production staff working day and night recently, just for this day. After everything is done, wait for the young master to give you the name. What a ritual. Name. Alan rests his chin on his right hand. The film was inspired by Good Luck, typo, Rio Grande, but this original name is too featureless. You find a black duck and wish him good luck at the end. The British are just pretentious. He made this movie to attract traffic to his black duck farm in the Gambia. It's for Gambia's economic development. It's just like the original film. The rich woman hopes that the black duck will change his ways, so how can it be fun, encouraging errant women/men to be good as what every prostitute likes to do, regardless of gender, but not with him this time. This will affect his business. The new title of this movie must be exciting, topical, and discussion worthy. Call it Fork. Yes, call it Fork. F-U-C-K. Patrice looked at Alan in confusion. This name was really unexpected, and it was too vulgar. Master, this is not good. What's wrong? Can't such a name pass the test? You can get by, but some of them are not very civilized. HMPH. Vulgar. Prejudice. Alan pointed at Patrice and said, I know this is a dirty word, but have you ever thought that the purpose of this film is to guide us middle-aged and elderly women in the UK to stand up and fight? What to fight for? Fighting emotionally the emptiness and loneliness. Think about it. When you are fighting, what is the most powerful thing to shout? Besides fake, is there anything else? When the Statue of Liberty revolted, all the people shouting were fake. This also, aside from the modal particles, even if it is taken literally, do you think it fits the meaning of our film? It is concise and clear. People can't know what our film is about just by looking at the title. What? Right. It's a word with multiple meanings, and it's a word that's tailor-made for our movie. Patrice thought for a long time, and the corners of his mouth twitched. It seemed that it was true that, if he went to find the black duck, he would go to fake. Okay. Let's talk about the promotion and release time. The promotion will go according to the original plan. The Gambia's advertisement will be published in the newspaper. There is no need to invest too much. The release time will be set at the beginning of April. This time period is also the off-season anyway, so it will be set for April 7th. Alan looked at the movie poster in his hand. Meryl looked like Thatcher, standing in front of the mirror with her head lowered. Behind her was a shirtless black man with smooth muscle lines. Hold her. If you didn't look closely, you would have thought it was some tidbit about the Prime Minister being exposed. Point at that time. Under this poster, add those big English letters fake. It's all done. I just want to ask if such a poster is exciting enough, and can it attract attention? I don't know. How would Charles feel if he knew that this was the movie Alan made? I think Charles would be very pleased. Right. Alan has even found a way out. Before the release, he took a plane to Zhangjiang to avoid the limelight. When he comes back, the movie will probably be released. The plan is perfect, dear sir. We are about to land at Kai-Tak Airport in 10 minutes. Do you need an eye mask? A flight attendant with freckles on her face asked Alan with a smile. No, I know this airport looks scary. It's okay. Although Alan was smiling, he was actually a little impatient. The stewardess knew his identity and would come over to ask questions whenever he moved a little bit along the way. She was extremely considerate. It made Alan feel uncomfortable. Now that we are finally about to land, we need a blindfold. April 8th, 1987. The Boeing 747 that transferred from Singapore landed slowly at Kai-Tak Airport in Hong Kong. Not far from the runway, the new Hong Kong governor Wen Dui stood early and waited quietly beside a row of luxury cars. Although Wen Dui came to pick up the plane this time, he did not announce the specific situation. But the new governor of Hong Kong, who has just taken office, touches the hearts of thousands of people with every move he makes. Every word and deed of Wen Dui in Hong Kong will be interpreted in countless ways, not to mention something that requires him to come to the airport to pick him up in person. I don't know who discovered Wen Dui and his entourage first. Not only did they attract countless paparazzi, but also several regular media had set up cameras in the distance. No matter who the new governor of Hong Kong wants to pick up today, judging from the governor's low profile today, the person coming is definitely a big shot. The governor needed to be picked up personally. Even before the plane landed, the governor was already waiting outside the car. What kind of big shot must he be to be treated like this? Chapter 74. Having both ability and political integrity. After the plane stopped, it was supposed to connect to the terminal first, with VIP customers getting off first, but today's passenger plane was a little strange. The ladder was put down first, and following Weiduo's actions, the group moved to one side of the ladder and waited quietly. Two strong men who looked like bodyguards got off the plane first and exchanged a few words in low voices with the people around Weiduo. Then a short and stocky old man slowly got off the plane with 4 bodyguards. This person looked a little strange, as if he had never been to Zhangjiang before. The media who were joining in the fun at the terminal were making guesses, not daring to relax their hands at all, and their flashlights were on frequently. Weiduo was a little surprised when he saw the old man who came down first. He had never seen this old man before, but whether it's from his attire or the medal he wears on his chest, it can be seen that this old man with a fierce face who is not easy to get along with at first glance is a real knight. The civilization stick that symbolizes civilization hit the ground heavily, and the old man really used it as a crutch. With a bang, 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 and bang, the old man walked up to Weiduo. "Hello, Sir Weiduo, I'm Carl, the butler to His Excellency the Earl. Nice to meet you, Carol." Shook hands with Weiduo, pointed with his left hand at the media with cameras in the terminal building and said, "You need to touch up your makeup and touch up. Please wait a moment." After listening to Carol's words, Weiduo understood it and called the secretary next to him, asking him to notify the airport security personnel to start preparing to drive away these media people. These people are useful today. Weiduo had discovered them a long time ago, but he had to wait until Alan was about to get off the plane before chasing them. He couldn't start chasing them before they arrived. You have to let people take photos, right? Without these clandestine shots by the media, how would others know that he, the new governor of Hong Kong, quietly came to the airport to greet a distinguished guest today? "Master, do you think this is okay?" The makeup artist held up the mirror for Alan to see. Turning his cheek, Alan nodded with satisfaction. After all, he was going to appear on camera, so he still needed to touch up a little. "Do you really think that those male celebrities don't wear makeup when they go on camera? No matter how good looking a person is, he still has to put on a little makeup before going on camera. What's more, this is his first appearance here. The overall image must be good, and it's best to have a good look." When the airport security personnel rushed towards the area where the media gathered, the media were still wondering. The imposing old man who had just got off the plane was standing next to the governor. The two of them were talking in low voices, as if they were waiting for the passengers on the plane. The real owner hasn't gotten off the plane yet. Now the security personnel are here to chase people away again, which means that the identity of today's visitor is definitely very important, with everyone's anxious anticipation. After waiting for a few minutes, 2 more figures finally appeared on the stairs. 2 bodyguards left first, followed closely by a tall blonde young man. This person stood on the stairs and did not rush to get off the plane. Instead, he glanced at the terminal from a distance and then slowly walked down the stairs under the protection of bodyguards. Weiduo and Carol stopped talking and hurried forward to greet them in person. "Haha, Your Majesty, you have worked hard all the way. Finally I see you again. Welcome to Zhangjiang." Weiduo took 2 steps at a trot, and with a good posture, he bent slightly and reached out to shake Alan's hand. Alan held Weiduo's hand and turned slightly towards the terminal to ensure that his image could be better photographed. From the corner of his eye, he felt that the frequency of the flashlights over the terminal building had decreased, and there was some agitation in the media area. Alan nodded and said, "Let's go." The black Daimler limousine, Weiduo's car, has a wide front end that resembles a Rolls-Royce. In order to show sincerity, the car was driven by Alan's driver Zhao Shitao himself, and Carol sat in the passenger seat on the left. Although Zhao Shitao didn't know the road, he just had to follow the car leading the way. "Sir, are you satisfied with this arrangement?" "Haha, you bothered. How long will it take for these reports to appear in newspapers?" "The fastest is in the afternoon or evening." "Well, have you found the house I need?" "This, we have to wait for a few days." "You should condescend to the governor's mansion for a few days to give them time to react." Alan nodded. He couldn't live in the governor's mansion forever. Although safety was guaranteed, not everyone could come to the governor's mansion. This will be a certain obstacle to his plan this time, which will prevent the fat sheep from visiting, so I had to find a temporary place to live. He tilted his head and admired the scenery on the road. Not long after leaving the airport, I saw a lot of red and white double-decker buses on the road, which had a sense of age. Alan didn't like riding in these buses in the past. After trying it once, he never did it again. He always felt like this. When the double-decker bus turned, it seemed like it might roll over at any moment. As today's financial center in Asia, Zhangjiang's development is still very impressive. What impressed Alan most was the people on the street. A sense of intimacy came over me. Sir, take a look. These are the guests I invited for today's dinner. Are you satisfied? Alan was a little confused. There were no plans to meet guests today. Picking up the pamphlet Wei Dui handed him, as soon as he opened it, there was an introduction to the information. Name: Li Mishan, the 1986 Miss Hong Kong title winner, is followed by a long list of detailed introductions. Alan didn't pay attention to the others. He was captivated by the photos in the album at a glance. Facing Wei Dui's flattering gaze, Alan coughed twice and said, This is no longer necessary. I just arrived today, and I'm a little tired. This year's Miss Hong Kong selection has not yet been held. The title of last year's Miss Hong Kong winner is very bluffing. The selection of Miss Hong Kong not only depends on appearance, figure, but also education, conversation, etc. But just looking at the photos, Alan had no interest in her at all, and even felt a little scared in his heart. The appearance of this Hong Kong sister is really hard to describe. Is this the aesthetic deviation between the East and the West? It shouldn't be. Your Excellency, what is this? Wei Dui looked at Alan's eyes, that were quite interested at first, but suddenly turned a little disgusted. He had already thought about it. This was probably not the type he liked. What should I do? If there is an oversight in reception work, make amends quickly. Ahem. Well, I'm not the kind of person who cares about knowledge. I care more about external beauty. After hearing what Alan said, Wei Dui thought about the film production talent he had collected before. Is there any connection between this? Could it be that I had made a mistake? Sir, don't worry, I still have some film talents that I have recently collected. When we return to the governor's mansion, I will send you a piece of information, and you can choose for yourself. That's right. Alan glanced at Wei Dui with some relief. No matter how talented and virtuous a Hong Kong girl is, what's the use of not being good looking? He is just a common man and I can't even toughen him up. So what's the use of her being talented? Sometimes good technology cannot make up for the disadvantages in external image. Chapter 75. No one will think that I gave the order. Located mid-level between Albert Road and Lower Albert Road in Central, it is the Government House of Hong Kong, covering an area of 24,000 square meters. Looking at the tower with a strong Japanese style, Alan smiled. This can be regarded as historical precipitation in a sense. After the islanders occupied it, they converted the British-style governor's mansion building into Japanese style. Later, when the British came back, they continued to live there. The governor lived in this kind of place every day. If it were Alan, he wouldn't be able to sleep. Master, everything has been checked. There is nothing wrong with the room. Carol stood beside Alan, heard the bodyguard coming to report the situation, and relayed the conclusion to Alan. Well, compare the information Wei Dui gave you in the past 2 days to see if there are any discrepancies with the data found by your people. Alan was still a little on guard against Wei Dui. The information he gave could only be used as a reference. He had his own plans in mind as to what the facts would be. Old Carl has been helping Alan prepare a small company in Los Angeles. There are not many people, but they are all elites. There are many types of inquiries involved. This time, before Alan arrived in Zhangjiang, Carl sent people from the United States to quietly come to Zhangjiang to inquire about the information Alan needed. This kind of professional financial investigation agency doesn't need to be very accurate in their investigation, just roughly. Now that he has just arrived in Zhangjiang and is not familiar with the place, he can ask old Carol to check the situation so that he can have an idea. Master, the wind direction in the United States has been unstable recently, and the congressman I know does not dare to reveal more. We must seize the time here. I Understand. You go check the situation first. Alan drove Carl away and walked to the window to admire the sea view in the distance. The governor's mansion, located halfway up the mountain, had excellent viewing conditions in 1987. He knew that the most memorable event was the stock market crash, which was very different from the 1997 stock market crash. Alan has read some novels before, in which the protagonist travels through time, starts a business and builds a factory, catches loaches, collects bonds, and other various methods to get the first pot of gold, and then gets stuck. At the right time, he took advantage of the stock market crash to turn the tide in the stock market and make tens of billions. Just look at this thing. You really are a fool. With his small arms and legs, he doesn't want to jump in. This is not something he can play with now. Alan was not familiar with this kind of financial stuff at all, and he didn't want to get involved. Even if we knew there would be a stock market crash this year, what would we do? He couldn't remember the time points of this and that. Even if he knew a rough idea, if he really dared to go in and play, he would be slaughtered like a pig by the predators behind him in minutes. What's more, he has no money now. So he wanted to make a profit by himself before the assets of these fat sheep shrank. The financial tycoons above have their own way of playing, and Alan also has his own way of playing. Everyone plays their own way, without disturbing each other. His ability can only ensure that he can make money, act according to his ability, and be able to harvest a wave. But the upper limit of the amount can only be up to 100 million, and it is still a unit of money in the single digits of hundreds of millions no more. Alan was afraid that he wouldn't be able to keep it. While Alan went to Zhangjiang to travel and relax, Deng also encountered a big commotion. In a luxuriously decorated office with a strong sense of history, a middle-aged and elderly woman with a majestic face was holding a newspaper in her hand. The bones on his right hand were very obvious, and after being clenched for a long time, his right hand looked white and bloodless. But the cause of all this was a picture in the newspaper. The Prime Minister's secrets were exposed. Suspected of incest. Looking at the caption on the picture in the movie poster with a vulgar name, Thatcher gasped and her chest heaved violently. "Miss, have you found the director of this movie?" Just as the secretary was about to offer some words of comfort, Thatcher glared and asked her the question she was most concerned about. Someone was so bold as to use her as a gimmick to make a vulgar movie. It was found. Yes. Seeing the secretary hesitates to speak, Thatcher's voice became colder and colder. "Speak. It's the Earl of Carmarthen." Who? Hearing this name, Thatcher tried to think back, and a middle-aged man with a rough appearance and a bit of elegance appeared in his mind. She still remembered that a few years ago, this noble gentleman beat up another viscount in public during a meeting in Wales. The matter caused a big fuss. In the end, the Queen came forward to write a letter reprimanding the man called Viscount who was far away in Wales. Earl of Carmarthen of Carnot. No. Thatcher remembered that it seemed that last year, this eccentric earl had an accident with the heir he had trained. The last person to inherit his title was his youngest son, a man who was also controversial. It is said that he seemed to be good looking and made many jokes when he was a child. Thatcher dropped the newspaper a little irritably. How could such a nobleman make a movie? Did he have nothing to do? Aren't those Welsh people enough to have fun? Why don't you go and continue beating the Viscount? Now, even if Thatcher gets angry again, there is nothing she can do about the Earl who is far away in Wales. He is just brushing aside and not naming anything. There is no need to scrutinize everything in the newspaper. On the surface, it is certain it has nothing to do with that one. This damn bunch. Looking at the secretary's eyes, Thatcher did not dare to say the next words. Is this a movie made by Alan? Charles finally took a day off and looked at the servant holding a movie master tape specially sent to him. Feeling slightly curious, Alan told him at the beginning that this was a film made to give middle-aged and elderly women a voice and promote economic construction. He was very curious about what Alan had photographed. There was no poster on the disc-shaped metal casing. Charles waved his hand and asked his servants to take it to the screening room to prepare for the screening. It's been a long time since I've watched a movie at home. I called the princess and the two of them drank tea and chatted together. It was quite nice to enjoy a movie made by the Count in the afternoon. The 107-minute feature film ended with a piano piece as the ending theme. In the screening room that was lit again, Charles looked a little unnatural as he looked at the subtitles on the screen. Is this what Alan said about promoting economic development? Huh. Butler. Capel wanted to run away from the middle of the film, but due to the weird atmosphere in the screening room at that time, he did not dare to speak. Now that His Highness asked, he didn't know what to say. He couldn't make irresponsible remarks about a Count. Right, I think it looks pretty. Maybe it was because of the different viewing angles, and because this movie was originally made for middle-aged and older women. Diana felt it was okay after watching it, and even a little agitated. But Charles didn't see it that way. Although the female lead in the movie had a good figure, and the scenes fully demonstrated her charm, he always felt that something was going to happen to the movie. Especially the issue of the heroine's image. Although it is just a side issue, there is a change of leadership this year. It is really a good time to brush it off like this. After closing his eyes and thinking for a moment, Charles was suddenly startled, and his eyes suddenly opened. Damn it. Fuck. No one would think that this was a movie I instructed Alan to make, right? P.S. Here's a message. If nothing unexpected happens, it will be on the shelves on Friday. Dear friends, please stop keeping books. I have a lot of collections, and I haven't been able to keep up with my reading. I can't beat others in the recommended park. I'm going to feel bad. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.